Okay, we're going to get started here. We are online. Ready to rock and roll. All right. Members of MRF, welcome. Call to order and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Where are we? Way over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for my neighbor, there's not or my mayor, there's not supposed to be any pauses. Is that right?
Yeah, he
Said that at one meeting.
he said that several times, but
The Pledge of Allegiance.
yeah, there's no comment somewhere that we put in.
It's probably kids that did it so they can remember what the next stanza was, right?
It's funny because it's one of those things where, it has a certain cadence to it. I figure you'd probably recognize it even if there were no words to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the Lord's Prayer.
Right. And for the sake of time, we'll go with roll call. Let's go from the right today.
Bill Veach, Councilman Liaison.
Mary Rose Spalletta.
Johnson?
Greg Foster.
Jennifer Rusk. Rose Larkin.
Very nice. Okay. Thank you, everybody. The agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Question about something. On that section B on exotic vegetation, I don't believe that's what you said. Where it says on the second sentence that you questioned whether the vegetation ordinance should be completed before moving forward with some items. Vegetation ordinances are completed. I think what you were saying was that you needed copies of them.
The minutes?
Yes.
Okay. This is the agenda.
The draft, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'll be ready for you then when we do that.
I'll be ready, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, again, the agenda here, is there a motion to?
Yeah, I move we accept the agenda as written.
Any opposition? Okay. Carries unanimously. Approval of previous meeting minutes.
Now, sorry.
Now is your
Now
chance.
that's my time. In that second sentence under section B on exotic vegetation, it says that you questioned whether the vegetation ordinance should be completed before moving forward with some items. The vegetation ordinances have been already written previously. It's just at the last meeting, everyone just got handed the copy of the landscaping ordinance, and it was the tree protection ordinance that was still missing. You just got that electronically like a week and a half ago. I'm thinking that's not the exact wording of what you said. It was that questioned whether something about copies of the vegetation ordinances should be provided.
I think the question I had was, should the invasive vegetation, the one we're working on, that be completed before moving forward with activities such as to remove invasives? The point was if you don't have the ability to stop people, prohibit people from planting invasives, then does it make sense to start a campaign to remove them when, to use my example, we can ask people to remove them, they remove them, and the neighbor says, oh, those look great, I'll put them in my yard, and there's nothing actually stopping them from doing so. That's, I think, what I was talking about there, unless it was out of context of what we were discussing. Sound right or not?
And yes, kind of no, but we weren't writing any ordinances. We were just making additions to the ones that existed, and some of that addresses invasive plants, and that's how they should be.
I think maybe my point, there's no list of prohibited species.
You're to refer to sites. In the suggestions,
Oh, sure, in the suggestions, but those haven't been codified
Right,
yet.
that's
That's not in what would we.
Right, and so once we kind of dealt with these suggestions, and possibly we could move forward and look at writing a whole new set of ordinances, just invasives.
Mm-hmm.
The invasives are incorporated into the
Right.
and stuff.
Right, for multi-use and commercial and or under the auspices of an LDO. Correct? later on, if a multi-use, house, let's say, wants to plant some invasives, they can, a year after their LDO is approved. Is that,
Correct. They need to, it's specifically written in the ordinance for developmental orders that they must be free.
oh, it is?
Perpetuity.
Okay, okay.
I wrote a condition.
And that list of invasives is the one that's
Yeah,
currently listed in your recommendation list, right? 10-416, right?
dash 420.
420, yeah. Okay, so,
Maybe what you were saying is you wanted the vegetation ordinance
for
specific.
single family, basically, to apply towards single family before we ask single families to pull them out,
Okay.
or whatever, to allow them the opportunity to remove them. Does that make sense, Rose? Or is that not?
I personally don't think it's needed, but then I'm.
Well, we
one
can, I
person.
mean, I don't think
So-
that's, you know,
I just thought, it's like, well, we have vegetation ordinances, and this statement just
hurt you.
needed a couple extra words.
Okay,
We'll add in for single family.
okay. Completed for single family. Okay, I'll make that adjustment here. Okay, any other issues with the minutes? I have a motion to then approve the amended.
Yeah, I'll
Minutes?
move, we approve the minutes with that one correction suggested by Member Larkin.
Thanks, do I have a second?
Second.
Perfect. Any opposition? Any opposition? No? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Perfect. Okay, so that's some activity for meeting minutes we usually don't have. Public comment? Members of the public here? We can skip that. Current items, let's jump right in at 3:09 into dark skies. Again, this has been on the agenda in order to work toward a dark skies municipal lighting ordinance. And as we have reviewed the current municipal lighting ordinance, we find that it actually contains really the bones of a dark skies ordinance. And prior to working toward either updating or modernizing this older ordinance, we had another sort of lighting project that's come up that potentially would steer us away from dark skies. And you have a steering document as well as the lighting standards, Division 20 lighting standards in your possession. And so to kind of move through this steering document, there's a couple of, so maybe to put this, to frame this, right now there are really 2 or 3 projects going with regards to parks. This would apply to the Bayside Park as well as Times Square, which is really more or less being done in conjunction as you look to make that consistent through the San Carlos corridor and basically improve that whole district. So in that, if you look to maybe if you look to page 2, there's a couple things there. First of all, that's an image of the street lighting plans right now. The yellow, all the yellow roadways there have all been already or have been designated to be narrowband amber LED roadway lighting for 12 months a year. So that would include the Estero Boulevard roadway lighting project, includes the 5th Street and San Carlos signal light project, which is right next to Times Square. It includes the County Crescent Street and Estero Boulevard signal project. So that would be further down, that's the county's. The Crescent Street and Numbered Street sidewalk and roadway lighting project. So Crescent Street and all the roads leading into Old San Carlos Boulevard are all amber. The State Basic Bridge project, including the signal light, as well as the Matanzas Pass Bridge project right now is all, that one has not been, I think that's at the 60% plan, was presented as having narrowband amber LED lighting. So one aspect of this is, I think, roadway safety. If you imagine you're in Times Square and the lighting plan as written, Bayside Park, is that they would be putting up dual lights, so amber for half of the year and white LED lighting for the other half of the year. The question is does it make sense to have Times Square half year lit up in white and have to cross that intersection at 5th Street, at, what is that, Old San Carlos Boulevard, and I guess that's 5th Street, right? And do amber lighting, and then into white lighting, potentially, on Old San Carlos Boulevard, which has not been designated, but the assumption is that's what it would be. And as well as having roadways leading into Old San Carlos that then you would change roadway color. I think there's a major safety issue. I think that's a sort of a basic, a lighting basic that you do not, for safety purposes, want to cause any light confusion or eye confusion.
I have a question.
Yes.
Was this plan, as this has been approved through town council, correct?
I think
Was
the
brought
way
to-
it's positioned is that it has been, the money has been approved.
We don't, it goes through a code review in the town.
Or it's actually presented to town council?
We approved the funding and we approved the general design.
My understanding is there's been an LDO submitted for this plan. The permit has, in fact, it has gone through. Permitting.
Okay,
And that's a
You-
problem, yeah, I mean, that's,
can someone explain to me how that happened?
yeah, I mean, it went through staff, and I think the town has, has issued themselves a permit for this. And I think what we're presenting here today is that the plan itself should not have been approved because it does not comply to our municipal lighting ordinance. Or specifically for the parks, the roadway lighting is not covered under the municipal lighting ordinance.
And they also, in the Times Square section, which kind of ties in with this on lighting, that huge sail that they want to put up there, they're planning on, they have a projection light, they're planning on illuminating it at night. This huge white sail.
The Gobi light, yeah, it's a projector, and it's on a 25-foot pole, which is not
So it's
allowed,
like-
which is not allowed specifically in the ordinance.
I think there might be a little different thing we're talking about because I think the sail is on hold and there would be a platform. I recall this is some time ago, the sail is currently not going to be installed. We're going
Okay.
to wait for something else. But the Gobi light is something separate from, the sail is going to be illuminated with uplights.
Lighting, okay. But the Gobi, yeah, I mean, the representative that was at the meeting said it would be at the top. It's a 25-foot pole. And the highest you can go is maximum 14, but typically 12 for that area.
So if there has been a permit pulled for this project, are we under some sort of contract? Is the town under a contract with the lights, dual lighting that's?
No, and I think the LDO is only for Bayside Park and not for Times Square, is that correct? Do you know? F note is, Chad, do you know if that, the Bayside Park, I don't think that's, or the Times Square is finalized, correct?
I thought we had 100% plans.
Because, I mean, but also for Times Square, there's the point that that's within the triple CL, so that would require a DEP permit, correct?
Sir,
Okay.
I would imagine.
Which would require then the DEP to approve it as well as the FWC for lighting. And I can tell you that's not going to fly. So why begin work on Bayside Park with something like this when, in fact, by the time you get to Times Square, you'll run into problems with FWC compliance for.
When they pulled the permit, did they look at the lighting ordinance or did they?
I don't know. I just know that it's been approved. So, I mean, our point here, I think, is to say that potentially to advise council that it's outside of our own ordinance and for the reasons why. So, for pedestrian vehicular safety, it makes sense to pursue really a single consistent outdoor lighting color, I think, for walkways, crosswalks, roadways.
Can I ask another question? Why was this not brought to MRF?
We're here at the call of council. It was not.
There was, I brought up, in with this last council meeting, about suggesting we come up with a lighting plan for the downtown area in its entirety. Because we're putting in amber streetlights on Crescent and the numbered streets. We're doing Bay Oaks, doing Times Square, and then I think there's something in the works maybe for Old San Carlos. I'm not really sure. But just, do we want to make that whole area consistent with the lighting, with the light styles, and the lighting? And then that conversation ended up with all of us saying, give it to Steve. Steve discuss it with staff.
Well, I attempted to contact the subcontractor, Ensite, who did the lighting plan, and they wouldn't return my call. So
I think it's supposed to, I'm talking to Roger that he's planning on having a meeting with you and the contractor when they're here.
sounds like it in January, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. And then maybe some of staff, and I don't know who.
Okay.
In the meantime, it's not a fait accompli. I mean, although it would seem that they have the plans to do this dastardly thing,
Right. It's the document I have
it-
shows it's
right.
100% plan. Yeah.
it's just all planned. It can still change.
Correct. Yeah, they had hoped to break ground, I think, in January. So I think
Well,
it's impending.
So with a permit pulled, basically that's a go-ahead, that's a green light to go?
Well, I don't think so. I think that our town manager and our town council recognizes there might be an issue, and town council discussed it, and they're willing to talk and find out if there's, if this is actually a warranted complaint. In fact, it goes against the town lighting ordinance, and that's why you sort of have the town lighting ordinance here. And just to kind of dig in just a little bit, the majority of the lighting is uplighting, which basically projects from the ground up into the atmosphere. And if you go through our lighting ordinance, it talks about not allowing anything to rise above a horizontal plane in the light. I mean, it's extremely specific what our municipal lighting ordinance is. Everything has to be full cut off. And there's also
lighting
foot
in the
candles.
ground?
I mean, yeah, so there's actually, it's difficult to see in the steering document, but essentially, if I was to just recap this, there are, for Bayside Park, for instance, if you look at that, the kind of the artist renderings for Bayside Park, in the grates that are around the palm trees, there will be two well lights, they're called, and you can see also in the documents, the well light is simply a light that goes straight up. Actually, it can be turned maybe 30 degrees. It comes straight up out of the ground in each of those well lights, so there's maybe 16 of those. In addition,
What's the point of that, Steve? Is it so
it's
people don't walk into the tree?
it's aesthetic. It's landscape lighting, and
So it's not really necessary.
It's not
it's vanity lighting.
directional.
It's the reason I think. I mean, the reason they did is they're trying to create an atmosphere for the merchants in that area to somehow draw people,
Right.
I think. And I don't think, I think from our position, potentially being in a MRF, that lighting is not necessarily what you should be using maybe to draw people in, especially when it's not compliant with our own municipal lighting ordinance.
So those lights in the ground, they're not directional, it's not, basically the light just shoots
It's
straight
directional
out?
up to, I think, 30 degrees. So it's going straight up, and like I said, if this is the light, this is the well light, it's going up, and it can be turned up to 30 degrees.
To
The ordinance says
illuminate the tree.
specifically it has to shine down, and not more than 10% can actually escape from underneath the light. Whereas I don't think most people are at all against accent lighting. I think I love it. I mean, I like that, but I do like color as well. I think the point is it has to go down. If you look at the purpose of the municipal lighting ordinance, it says the purpose is to curtail and reverse the degradation of the nighttime visual environment by minimizing light pollution, which is light going up into the atmosphere, glare. Uplighting is the definition of glare, certainly from a safety perspective as well, and light trespass. So, I mean, there's even in here regulations that says you can't have even a half a foot candle of light trespass into, let's say, Snug Harbor's property. Not only that, but you can't direct light to seaside, and you can't direct lighting toward roadways. So I'm not sure where they were directed if they can't, how it could be directed. And as Council Veach had mentioned in the meeting, that it also, anything that does go up, let's say under a canopy, has to be completely contained by the object it's illuminating. So a tree obviously would let out the grand majority, much less a palm tree. Basically, you're shining up, and 100% is supposed to hit the palm leaves. Anything that is dispersed past those is basically not allowable. But also there's foot candle issues as well. There's a slide here from the photometric evaluation, which is interesting. It's on page 6 at the top. I'm sorry, nope, I lied. It is on page, it has to be 4. Oh, it's on a page?
Don't see it.
For photometric.
Proposed lighting fixtures,
Attachment to what?
proposed luminaries, 7.
Page 5 missing.
Page 5 is missing on mine.
There's
Oh,
a,
page 5 is missing? All right, so page 5 actually shows you the photometric analysis. There's a chart there that basically the photometric analysis tells you how many foot candles of light, of luminance, will be hitting the pavement to illuminate what you're supposedly illuminating. There's a chart, actually we have a chart within our municipal code here that states that regardless of who you are, where you go, maximum here is 3.2, but for the target, even on the photometric plan, it actually, lighting designer actually has the target, which I'm assuming, and I couldn't confirm it because I couldn't get a call returned, was based on this ordinance that says it has to be a minimum of 0.3 foot candles and a maximum of 1.2. 1.2, which is essentially the illuminance level that they'll be using for Estero Boulevard for roadway lighting. The average for white light in Bayside Park is 14 foot candles, and even the amber is 7. That's anywhere between 8 to 12 times allowable limits based on our municipal lighting ordinance.
This is actually ridiculous.
Well, it's just, I don't understand it. I mean, this
No,
is,
well, I think
this is the LDC. It's not my words, it's written in paper. And it's the, the intentions of the forefathers of this community. And I think, I think that hopefully we've caught it. But I think that it's on the agenda in order for us potentially to put together a town council recommendation so they understand where the Marine Resource Task Force stands on this.
who oversees the people who approve permits? Because there's the problem. The person writing the permit, approving a permit made a mistake. Who's their overseer, boss, supervisor?
That's not really our scope.
No, who is that person or group? Is that town council? Who oversees?
They don't look at,
I don't think they made a mistake.
Council does not direct staff, we make policy.
Who does that?
I think town council is, we have 2 employees, town manager, and then, and the attorney, and the town manager runs the day-to-day operations.
The people, this is not the only time people who do permits have made a mistake. Torgeson's house and the pool, and who oversees the person who approves permits?
One thing I can tell you is everyone on staff is human.
There's a house down the street that just was constructed, and I know it doesn't adhere to these.
And I understand people are human, but these are 2 major projects that town, tax
I'm just
dollars.
saying human.
I understand that, but this was Bayside Park, Times Square. That's a major, road for our tourists. You would think that this oversight is not acceptable.
I think the thing to do at this point really is is for the committee to express their recommendations to the chair so that he can speak with the authority of the committee when he meets with staff. When he came in to talk at the last meeting, he was talking as an individual because he hadn't had the chance to bring this in front of the committee. I think right now, that's what you should do, is just make recommendations, pass them by a vote. authorizing Steve to speak on your behalf, and then saying what it is you believe should be done.
Point taken. I have a motion here I'd like to put on the floor, and if there's a second, perhaps we can continue from there. This is just very brief, but I move that the Marine Resources Task Force urge our council to take action which will ensure that all lighting projects undertaken by the town of Fort Myers Beach or within the boundaries of the town of Fort Myers Beach be constructed and maintained in compliance with town lighting ordinances and wildlife safe best practices. Furthermore, I would recommend that review of any such future projects always be run past either Marine Resources Task Force or some similar group interested in the town's benefits.
One thing I would just say with your motion, before you
Yes.
get a second in it. First part sounds like a valid motion, but then
get on
injecting
the
the
end.
committee in a town process, I'm not sure is something
Well,
that is
if we
possible. Because
end
your
there.
role is to advise to the town council, and the town council directs on manager.
Then I would drop that ending. And would you like me to repeat? Or
Sure,
Would you- would you-
if you would please restate the motion.
Transcriber may want you to repeat, yeah.
I move that the Marine Resources Task Force urge town council to take any actions necessary to ensure that all lighting projects undertaken by the town of Fort Myers Beach or within the boundaries of the town of Fort Myers Beach be constructed and maintained in compliance with town lighting ordinances and wildlife safe best practices.
Add and authorize Steve as our representative to talk with, was it Roger?
I think that's implied. If you've made a recommendation, then I think you can take that.
Can I get a second on that, or?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jen. It's
Just
on the
before you
floor.
vote, just so you know, also,
So we need to discuss it, I would say.
that you discuss this, vote on it, but then some of these things may make more sense being a separate motion, as opposed to putting one huge motion with lots of fingers.
Okay, that's one. Well, there's a patience I prepared myself, but
One's establishing a protocol. It's like when, hiring this company, they've gone through a lot of time and effort and come up with these plans, and then now they've got a permit and they think they're all set to go, and it's like, it's even tough, it's tough on the company to now go back and say, well, we don't like your lighting, and I don't like your vegetation, and, this, that, and the other thing. It's
yeah.
And ultimately, that's taxpayers' money.
that,
But at this point, if lights go up there are non-compliant, they would all have to be replaced at even a greater expense.
the protocol of like when something like this comes up, it's like, what is the system on Fort Myers Beach has? I mean, who's
Right, well, that will be up to the council.
That's
Who's
not our,
terrible?
yeah, that's not our.
responsible
That's
for
not us.
handing out all the ordinances?
I have a question. So when a plan is brought to town council, is it your understanding that everything has been looked at by the permitting department and is up to code?
What we get is we usually get a 30%, I think a 60%, 90%, and 100%, or not even at the 100% plan, usually those three. We're approving things at a conceptual level. We are not enforcing code compliance. Our role. But again, if I see something, and honestly, I didn't catch this, then we can talk about it at council and change earlier plans.
So the council can revisit.
But the plans are not, the more it goes along, the more detailed it gets, and the more the details come out. Initially, they're like sketches.
There was really no lighting sketches in the renderings earlier. I think there was one for Times Square, and that was all.
Now, if you were to, let's say you'd recommend to, town council that they eliminate all uplights. And the town council voted to eliminate all the uplights. And that would direct the town manager to make.
The town council ultimately needs to understand the ordinances that involved certain plans.
Some of these plans, I mean, my recommendation would be to put them on the website so people can actually look at them. The problem is trying to get this information is not always easy. But any of these projects should have some type of a
It's a great idea.
availability for people to actually see it, I think is it. So, you know, that sort of was maybe the case earlier with Bayside, that they moved toward a certain direction, and not until it became a little bit more public that was there an outcry for the intended use of it at that point, until they did it, and there's a new plan for Bayside. So that's maybe the process we're in now.
So I second Mary Rose.
First
If that
recommendation?
isn't, if that isn't what we want, I'm willing to withdraw it. If someone has another motion that they feel is, we want one that's more specific, is that it?
Make multiple motions.
Yeah, so that, we can do that.
Do
So
we want,
I'll probably make a motion myself, actually, if we have following yours, maybe more specific.
well, we can't have both motions on the floor though. so
No,
we'll-
we need to vote on yours.
All right.
Yeah, because it's been seconded. Any more discussion on Mary Rose's motion? Opposition? Motion carries unanimously. Wording down here. Yeah, there's, I have a motion here too, actually. I thought I'd put some time into it. So I'll make a motion that the Marine Resource Task Force recommends to Town Council that pedestrian vehicular safety, that they pursue a single consistent outdoor light color for walkways, crosswalks, and roadways throughout the entire downtown commercial district. They comply with the FDOT FWC Wildlife Area of Concern and installed FDOT certified narrowband amber roadway lighting, as has been selected for the Estero Boulevard roadway lighting project, the 5th Street and San Carlos Signal project, the County Crescent Street and Estero Boulevard Signal project, the Crescent Street and Bird Street sidewalk and roadway lighting project, the State Base of the Bridge project, including the signal light, and the Matanzas Pass Bridge project. In addition, comply with the Town of Fort Myers Beach Municipal Lighting Ordinance, Division 20 lighting standards, with the purpose to curtail and reverse the degradation of the nighttime visual environment by minimizing light pollution, glare, and light trespass. Provide the residents of Fort Myers Beach with a good example of responsible outdoor lighting. Additionally, specifically, use full cutoff and shielded fixtures, stay within the safe illumination level stated in the Town Municipal Lighting Ordinance, and eliminate the use of uplighting to prevent glare and aid in the conservation of wildlife and protect our dark skies. Comply with the Federal Endangered Species Act by installing FWC certified wildlife lighting in Times Square and Old San Carlos Boulevard as an example to residents and merchants of responsible stewardship of our environment, while avoiding the liability associated with the take of endangered species. Provide a year-round solution that complies with all governing bodies while providing a safe, enjoyable environment that supports local merchants without extinguishing lighting for half the year. And position the town of Fort Myers Beach to attract the increasing eco-minded tourists and reinforce its brand identity. Period. Long motion.
It's specific.
I have a,
It is specific.
I have a second.
You have a second?
Question? There's a lot in there.
I think it's good to be specific.
I think the, is detailed as that was, currently the continuation was that the colored lighting and all the non-amber lighting would be turned off during turtle season. I don't think, I mean, in my opinion, that's a good solution for our community because, I mean, I'm a full-time resident, so I like to go downtown in the summer too. And it would be nice to have something, some accent lighting and you know, and also the merchants, let's face it, that's when they need the customers the most, in the summer, not during the high season. So a year-round solution that satisfies the lighting needs of sort of both seasons, I think is a better solution. And hopefully that would be the recommendation to the lighting designers.
Make copies of that?
I did not. No, I did not.
Consistency is very important. You talk about going from the amber and then the bright light. Consistency on a little island is, I think it's critical.
I think that crosswalk that is recently identified as the busiest crosswalk in town is actually that situation where you're going potentially from Times Square into Old San Carlos while going through a different light color temperature. So,
Especially because of the number of visitors who are unfamiliar with our streets and our traffic patterns. We need to make the visibility as smooth and as easy as possible.
yeah.
If we go from white to amber, it's going to be glaring, it's going to be very difficult. Vice versa. We need to keep it consistent.
Just going to interject something real quick, just for the
Sure,
record.
absolutely.
Robert Howell is now at the meeting.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Robert. Okay,
Sorry for
thank
any
you.
disrespect to anybody. I'm sorry I was late.
No problem.
In your motion,
see
do
you
you
again.
say anything in regards to inside lighting as well?
No, I don't have any, I mean, that's not really part of the project. So
Right,
this is
right.
really this is the project that's on the table.
Real quick. So this 3K site lighting plan that you have here and the turtle friendly, I think that was an earlier middle that was rejected by staff. Staff came back and they came back with lower maximums and lower averages to satisfy the lighting ordinance, if I'm reading the records correctly. So I think those concerns are addressed.
Okay,
There
that'd
still
be
is
great.
a 3K and a turtle-friendly amber
Right, the dual
dichotomy, or whatever you want to call it.
lights,
dual-
yeah, right. That's a dual board,
Being involved in that, the reading of the ordinance, I felt that it did satisfy that. Also, on the chart, I believe staff felt that this was medium activity for the minimum and maximum, so assessing it as 0.3 and 1.2 for the average, staff felt it was more of a medium activity that would be 0.8 and 3.2.
Okay, I made the assumption that was low activity since it's neighborhood retail. And also, I mean, more so because that's what it said on their photometric, the target. And I have to assume that's what that meant. It said targeting on the right-hand side of their photometric plan.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm
speaking
just,
personally, I think it's kind of more of a high traffic, foot traffic area.
yeah, I mean, 3.2 is still fine. I mean,
So I think those concerns, to
not 14, but 3.2, yeah.
the daggers away that, I think staff did address those lighting concerns, at
Okay.
least from the photometric standpoint.
I took the comments here from the document I received, which was labeled the 100% plan. So that's why I assumed that was the case. Didn't look.
No, I think that's a
Permit
dated
documents.
plan that you were supplied with, and I'm looking at this correctly from the record, the 3K and the amber plan.
But the lumen levels of, even though uplighting, those are about 2,000, they're 1,920 lumen uplights. And,
I have to come back to you. I mean, I don't remember, this was
Yeah.
months ago reviewing it, and
there's
the
a,
staff were on it as well.
under exceptions, you'll see that it includes the fact that you can have non-full cutoff fixtures, but if they are, they have to be below a certain lumen level, 900 lumens, and also need to have a frosted top on them to avoid uplight. So the point, I think, you might agree with me, is that this whole ordinance is about preventing uplight. That's exactly what the plans include, so
Certainly minimizing them.
minimizing them, yeah, it's actually talked about minimizing it, correct? But also, it gives you specifics on how to minimize them.
Parent 4, C, does have some canopy lighting allowances.
Well, what's the definition of canopy? Because these refer to fascias, side fascias, not flat. So side fascia, if you're uplighting, the fascia itself can't be lit. It has to be completely up. Also, sign lighting here as well. They have a Fort Myers Beach sign in the Bayside Park that has an uplight built into the base. And it's very, very, very specific here on signs that they have to be downlit.
Have you seen the permit that was pulled?
No, I'm not, no, that's,
Is that, public?
I'm sure it is. I mean, they may make a FOIA request for it, but, yeah. Yeah, but again, I think it's been addressed at the town council meeting. And there's a path moving forward, but I thought that, here at Murph, since Dark Skies was on our agenda, that this would be very applicable to it, and that it would make sense for an advisory board to provide advice and a recommendation. Unless it's on the right up today.
Your motion was seconded, so we vote.
Was seconded. Okay.
Now, is there anything that staff has said about regarding the design being different that wants you to amend your motion, or are you okay with the motion?
It is. It just talks about complying with the ordinance, and if, in fact, the modifications were in place to modify the photometric plans to accommodate the municipal lighting ordinance, then we should be okay. There's nothing specific here with numbers, so. Oh, we'll take it to vote. Any opposition?
I just
Or,
have one more
discussion?
question.
Yeah.
So once this permit is, I mean, since they've already issued the permit, is it something that they can cancel and resubmit a permit according to?
I could only assume so. Maybe
Anyone
Chad could comment on that. Is that
Remains to be seen.
I'm not sure that the permit has been issued.
okay?
I don't want to make any definite statements, but
And this is also a unique situation where essentially both the builder and the permitter are the same. So it means like if you decided to change and not put in some lights in ground in your house, you'd probably be allowed to do that, depending on how what the permit said. Like, it can be changed. The only question is, has money been spent to acquire lights already? And I don't think that should be a determining factor.
No, it was approved, the allocation, I think, for the sole source to scope for the lighting. I don't know if the purchase order has been or whatever, but the rep there was at the town council meeting in November and said that they are more than happy to work with the town, regardless of what they decide. Very good rep, I'll say.
Thank you.
Oh, any other discussion? Any opposition? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, let's go to next agenda item is exotic vegetation.
Yes. Folks got the suggestions again today. Here last month, you got them last month as well. And hopefully in between, you got a chance to read through the landscaping ordinances and the tree protection ordinances and go through this. Hopefully. Because it is a lot. So the first part, and probably first three on the first page, are what this subcommittee decided was the most important, and that was really enforcement. That a lot of times there's no enforcement, specific enforcement, so there's code violations and then nothing happens. It's just kind of like slap on the hand. There's two examples here. One was from Sanibel, the other was from Marco Island. They're just examples, so the town council could rewrite their own or have others, but it was just examples. There does need to be some sort of enforcement, and for both of those sets of ordinances, landscaping and the tree protection both.
So to interrupt you just for a second, Rose, so maybe to put some structure to this, because we did review it last time and we want to be very specific this time and actually move it along as best we can. I think even with Chad's input was that what we can do is make recommendations to staff. Is that right, Chad? And then you would implement those into a potential additions to existing ordinance, or as you had mentioned earlier, like for single family, include that then or set it up itself. Right, I guess where you start that as we go through this, we can actually make decisions on what we want, give it a final hand over to staff. That,
You're advising council.
council, exactly, right. But typically, don't they need something to look at to, I mean, we can't sit down and just read this, correct? We'd have to give them structure of what we want to do first, and then you would actually write it.
Yeah, just general policy, what you're looking for.
Right, okay.
Because usually, the staff wants direction from council before they spend money,
Of course, yeah, or spend time, which is money, yeah.
which is money, yeah. So, you can make your recommendations as you want, and then I think it's very effective too, Steve, you've been coming into council and presenting why you want what you want.
Yep, town council has been terrific. Very good. And I sort of did on that one, saying that we have this, but we wanted to pursue it because we're looking at, we did this invasives survey, and prior to actually committing activities to hopefully remove those, that we would hope to put something in place that would prohibit them being put back in, I think is.
And that is actually something on our agenda currently, is about removal of trees before building.
Yeah, I know that, yeah.
And a minimum vegetation requirement after places are built. So that's something we're actually working on now.
But this is more about, I think, invasives, but also, overall
It's
sort
the
of
whole-
vegetation.
it's all-
But, again, my little funny hole, I think, is
It's a good time to get it in front of council, because maybe those things have a certain synergy. Maybe they should be considered together instead of separate,
okay.
efforts.
Okay, then, so again, for the structure, I guess as we go through it, should we just try to get agreement on these as we go? So that we can say, okay, let's circle number 2, or I know last time we talked about number 1, if my memory serves me correct, we said that the first one was kind of punitive, and that we would just use whatever our normal fine process would be, right? That's what we said?
I don't know what the fine process is, because it doesn't seem to be implemented. But there needs to be that.
That's something Chad could probably tell us as sort of an enforcement guy, that, if you don't take your garbage cans in after 2 days or whatever the allowance is, you get cited or warned, and then they get fined, right? Or like a lighting ordinance.
Typically like a warning, educational warning. Hey, this is against the town of Fort Myers Beach ordinance. Fines can result from not following the ordinance.
Then there's a fixed sort of fine structure, correct?
Yeah, $250 for the first offense and $500 for.
Oh, is that
Okay.
satisfy you, Rose? I mean, that
Yeah,
there is
then
a
I
process.
kind of go back to the first one, though, even though it's kind of punitive.
I think it's the imprisonment that really got
Oh, yeah, okay.
that got everybody.
Okay, we'll take out imprisonment.
Okay. Well,
And then
like I
put
said,
in-
we can recommend it. I mean, this recommendation,
Yes,
and then also oversee the final writing of it. So, final decision, I guess.
and second one.
Okay. So sorry, I didn't mean to derail you there. I was trying to put some structure to this so we can actually.
So we're going to go with example number 1 with some modifications to not include the jail time and to have a first offense at $200 and subsequent offenses at $500.
But we can't do a misdemeanor. Can't have that word in there.
Yeah, I would probably, again, I would recommend that whatever
we already have-
wording we use for the other ordinances, that we'd keep it consistent in the town
There's already a
and paste.
enforcement mechanism in place in our code that we would follow. I don't think that's going to change.
Right.
Fairly effective.
If anything, your question, Rose, would be, do we want to even try to ask the town council to be even more punitive for this? I'm not sure I would agree with that. I don't know if anybody
add the
else.
specifics into these ordinances, so when people read them or get handed them, when they have some new project going on, they'll see what it is.
Okay, perfect.
It won't be in another section of
Okay.
ordinance world.
This only, if for trees, like it's not for plants, is it?
Yes, it's for landscaping.
Okay, so-
It covers Division 6, which is landscaping, and Article 5, which is,
So do we actually want to punish somebody who's got the wrong plants in?
No, well,
these are just
invasive.
examples pulled from other cities.
The example would
It
be,
sounds like a bit
the example
much
would
to
be
me.
that a multifamily structure gets an LDO, they redo their vegetation. He said in perpetuity, they're not allowed to plant the invasives that are just in their current vegetation. They do, and they would have to remove it or get fined.
Okay, so how about existing, if we drive down the boulevard, there's lots of people who have things that are not native, but we would like to get rid of. Suppose they choose not to, we're not gonna try and find them, are we?
I don't
No.
know. I mean, it'd be grandfathered, I suppose, yeah.
I
And
think
it
that we
would
need to
take
make it, have that be understood,
it would take education, yeah.
because, this just seems very punitive to me, and I
Like I
think
said, these
people.
are examples, Sanibel, Marco Island. They're
Yeah.
just
Well, the question
examples
would be,
that
would
we
it
pulled.
only involve land development orders, which would mean new structures, new plans?
And right now, it does only involve development orders, yeah.
Correct.
New pools, things like that.
Anybody that pulls a
So, well,
permit
not
or,
necessarily a new pool on a single-family residence is not a land development order is more for multifamily, commercial, development projects.
Okay, we put that in the beginning so people will understand that we're not going to go looking for trouble. It's only on new developments.
Well, that kind
I
of
think
goes
that
through the
is
rest
not-
of
that's
it.
not necessary.
Have you gone through the rest of it?
I've been reading, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to catch up.
Okay, so
We'll
It's
go back
covered
to that.
later, you think?
I think we understand number one.
The number 2 is the invasive plants listed for removal as well as prohibited. That University of Florida website that's listed there has current resources on invasive plants. And just the latest update, I'm hearing coconut palms are going to be moved from category 2 to category 1 next year. Good chance of it, yeah.
Uh-oh, you're all.
Rationale for not naming specific plants is because it can change over time. I mean, some species may be, accepted. It turns out that they were native. Other plants may be added over time. So
Those
if you
lists are
just,
very fluid.
yes, if you just use a website, your standards for your list, then it's always up to date.
So last meeting, we did discuss this as well, and Pat had said that to not have to manage that list every year, refer to, like you said, the FLE PPC list published for the state, and we had discussed it's better to have actually a listing, so if somebody can actually look at it themselves, and I think we had said that, yeah, you provide the link and that would be active. Is that reasonable?
Still concerned about, like coconut palms are gonna be added. Oxtail palms are from Australia, they're not native.
They might be Florida friendly. I mean, there's that difference.
Invasive.
It's invasive.
I'm just saying it's specifically invasive is what
I
we're
mean, if
speaking
you
about
have a
here.
foxtail palm, you're gonna have all little sprouts underneath it very quickly. So it
Well,
is,
I have foxtails, I don't have any sprouts.
There's
My wife
there's a
is
lot
pl-
that goes into what's considered invasive. It's not
Different species.
how
That's
fast
why I'm-
it spreads and.
concerned about opening it up to anything that University of Florida says.
Well,
No
it's the
review.
state of Florida, actually.
The whole state, they're in charge of overseeing all plants.
You might have no coconut palm.
People felt the same way about the Australian pines.
I understand.
Melaleuca.
I understand.
They have a definitive list of what they consider invasive, correct?
Correct, yeah,
changing.
But it's
category,
changing.
category 1 right now is 80 species.
Right, but so what I'm saying is how hard is it to make it so whatever's on that, instead of like us listing it out since it's already listed, just having in the verbiage for what we're trying to get across, just whatever the state considers invasive.
Current.
Yeah.
Right, and Vice Chair here is suggesting that the coconut palms, the fact that that potentially could be added, is that something that the town,
If it
our
become-
community be comfortable with, since
Maybe
there's so
it's,
darn many of
they're
them here?
pretty and they're iconic, but in the future, what kind of problems could they pose? Using those as an example.
We're not
Anything, I mean-
talking about taking out what's existing. We're
Correct,
just saying
it's not putting any
going
new ones
forward.
in, right.
Okay, these people got in under that, they're fine. They don't have to touch their trees, they're fine.
course.
Going forward, you want to put one in, enough.
Right.
Can't do it.
Maybe consider a different palm or a shade tree.
it's just, it is what it is, because
Right.
that list is so fluid, and it does change every
Okay.
year.
Number 3, landscaping standards at the time of application for a permit for new construction following the survey. We'd like to see irrigation landscaping design should be submitted in a drawing to scale, that you could see if the plants were too close, if, there's a booklet out on the counter on shade trees. Just having a drawing to scale of what they're putting in. That
Right, so
kind
right
of-
now, that's not part of the,
They just
Plan.
permit just the physical structure. And then there's a question which Jen had mentioned earlier, will it include new exterior decks, pools, et cetera? You could,
I mean, that seems to make sense. I know at the last council meeting, they were suggesting that they'd like to, when reviewing things, it's always better to have better drawings and more information, yeah. So I know, the vice mayor had recommended that.
In this, are you gonna, any new permit or only permits for multifamilies? I mean, this doesn't say,
Well, the idea is that we'll go to single family also.
Well,
it just is a new
It's already,
construction.
most of this is already being applied to DOs. DOs are much more comprehensive. They have the exotic plant list, exotic plant,
What
not be
DO
used
means?
as material, sorry?
DOs, you said, or?
DOs, yeah, developmental orders. So for the multifamily, commercial, institutional, already has the exotic language, already has, it's much more detailed for what your plant materials must be nursery grown, et cetera, et cetera.
I can just be clear that I understand. This ordinance would also cover this new building? Or what about someone that buys a home and clears up their whole landscaping, pool, artificial grass?
That requires a land development order, and
For, yeah, so single
right
family
now,
homes
single
don't-
families do not. My point is that part of this is to apply it to single family and development orders. Correct?
Would that fall under new landscaping construction?
I don't know right
Pools.
now. If I want to rip up my entire yard and re-landscaping, if I need a land development order, do I need a permit to do that as a single family resident, home?
That's what's happening.
Trees, though.
what's
Under the
happening.
tree
Isn't
protection.
it for
there's-
trees?
you're building
You
a
have
new
to have a
house,
vegetation
Protected
Yes.
tree, but you're allowed to take down 3 protected trees per year. You already have a structure there.
Yeah.
Now, when I was doing a project that involved potentially a sable palm, you said I needed to have a removal permit. It was one tree.
Yeah, yeah, up to 3. You're changing impervious area though?
A reduced actually impervious area.
What if you only have 3 trees? And
A minimum tree requirement in the town of Fort Myers Beach.
that's where I have a problem with,
That's something we are discussing at
That's the,
council level.
yeah,
Oh,
the tree, yeah,
not just tree, I'm talking about landscaping as well.
I think that was on, also
We
discussed.
didn't go as far as saying we're gonna put landscaping standards.
I will just have to tell you that there's numerous companies advertising here in Fort Myers Beach and probably all over the place, this new artificial grass, turf. People are gobbling it up because it looks better than all rock. And what I've read, every 1, square meter is equivalent to 25,000 plastic straws. So if you do your whole backyard in this, and I don't even know if it's pervious. I mean, these are things that if there's drainage to it, and pools are being put in at a rapid speed on this beach, on this island. New landscaping is, and a lot of them are rentals, so they don't want to have to, pay for landscaping. They're also advertising, these companies are advertising this artificial grass. They're advertising it that eliminates the loud noise from mowers. And so they're really pushing this artificial grass. And I'd like the town council to really dive into this because I think it's a big, big issue.
Funds are such an outdated
Environmentally.
mindset. I can't believe we're getting more and more into that kind of. Bad.
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because there's not a lot of perfect solutions. I mean, we know the problems with rocks. We know that a lot of times turf requires fertilizers.
Rocks require gallons and gallons of glyphosate.
Right.
I mean,
Or plastic, which means they have no absorption at all if there's
Right.
plastic underneath them, which I think is specifically prohibited. So then you're kind of constraining yourself to, we want people to put down native ground covers, which
I also worry
is very
about,
restrictive.
wildlife eating and digesting plastic from grass. About the breakdown of the
Does it hold up in
clean
a
up in our
storm?
water. There's a lot of concerns there. So I hope that the town council. And for single-family homes, they're just going in and ripping up their landscaping.
That is something that's being addressed. I was told there's actually a case now in town for that, but with, tearing up a lot of trees.
I understand it's their property and they own it and they
They're
feel
just saying
like,
the town council is actually, there's something, I don't really know the details of it, so I'm not gonna talk about a detail, but it's something that the town council is working, at least one instance I know. I understand what you're saying about the plastic, grass, but at least it doesn't require any glyphosate or fertilizer.
what is the artificial grass made of?
I know it's plastic.
he's suggesting it's a trade-off.
I'm just saying
Everything's
there's
a
not
trade-off,
the only perfect solution. That's again, and I don't know if we honestly can, because I think the state may have preempted a lot of this. We can't go to the point and tell people, well, you can't put down turf grass if you want to fertilizer. We have fertilizer rules. Can't put down, they can put down rocks, but then we can't prohibit them from spraying it with glyphosate. So I'm saying there is the perfect solution is native ground covers, but that's being very restrictive, and I don't know if we're allowed to be that restrictive.
Someone who likes lawns, it's real hard to play baseball on native football or soccer.
Golf?
But if you go to the Mound House, they don't fertilize, they don't water. It is what it is. But it has a lot of an invasive. It's that what they call the Florida snow. It's a Mexican thing or other.
Yes.
Yeah. That is everywhere. I mean, you go into wild areas, you go into crew lands, it's everywhere. But they mow it, and when they mow it, the term is, according to the invasive or the Native Plant Society, is they call it a freedom lawn. So you don't plant a certain type of turf, you just mow whatever's there, and it means you don't have to worry about seeding and fertilizing and all that. So
Basically what I do.
it's a lazy person's way to have a.
Does anyone know how they hold the artificial turf down? Does any?
I know how they do sports fields. It's actually concreted first. I don't know for homes. That's why the
we
artificial
can't-
turf in
It's not
football is
concrete.
very abusive to the players
Right,
because it's not soft.
And my question is I believe we don't lay concrete anymore. You have to have pavers now for drainage. So if you're using something like that to lay down an artificial turf, isn't that going against an ordinance of?
Yeah, there are ordinances about the amount of impervious surface you.
We move on, Rose?
Sure.
We're on the second page, really, number 4. All right? Okay.
So, under the tree protection one, this is just adding in additional terms and definitions to what's already there. And these were pulled from multiple other cities and towns just to kind of clarify terms that are already in our ordinance, but they weren't defined. And some of them are pretty simple. I mean, you would think people would know overall height, or to transplant, what these things mean, but it was just like, well, just to spell it out and give them a definition of what it
I
is.
agree with that.
That's
Sense,
just a
more
list to add
definitions,
them.
more clarity. As does the number 5 is the same then, correct?
5 is the same. It goes back to that open space buffering and landscaping. It's the same exact type of thing, where these are additional terms used within our ordinance that are not specifically defined.
Beautiful.
And then additionally, under number 5, there's a little additional thing down there, that to revise the open space section, that is 412, it happens to include the following verbiage, and just to add in the historic, cultural, or socially significant evidence of past human activity. Complexes to a group of artifacts, the boundary and extent of which is determined by a survey of a professional archaeologist. It's just to add those in, that terminology.
So, is there anything that affects besides the Mound House?
Not to my knowledge, but
I suppose if you're digging in your backyard and
I
you
don't
find a
know.
burial mound there, I guess.
Well, I know, I think like.
Well, we have some homes are historical sites.
Oh,
well, that's true.
Thank you.
Yeah, the old cigar bar that they're saving for Margaritaville is a historical building. Should that? I don't know. That's just to add in that verbiage. 5's okay?
Yeah.
All right, 6. To give an intent and purpose, there is, in some, like, at the tree protection ordinance, there's 2 whole sections at the very beginning of it, one about what findings of fact, and then the intent and purpose of why there's this ordinance. They don't have that for the open space buffering and landscaping. So this was just kind of 2 examples, again, from different places. Just doing something more user-friendly of why the ordinance exists.
I like example 1. I mean, I remember this, we did this last meeting. It's a little more flowery. It's my
It's very,
my
yeah,
opinion.
just
Although I
user-friendly.
would remove city and replace that with town, since we're really not a city.
Yep.
You know, the other thing is that, like in the second line there, it says, safety of the city's urban area. I don't consider the beach here urban by definition.
Where did you see that? Number 2?
It's the second line of example 1. Starting with it's the next line,
Right.
character, value, and
It's
safety of the city's urban area.
oh,
So I
just
would
the
probably
town's
change
area.
that to town's
Okay.
area.
But I changed most of those. I even put in Bay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
helps to have a purpose in there,
Okay, so we're gonna go with example number 1.
in my opinion. Anybody? Yeah,
Okay.
full impact.
Number 7, the rest of them get much shorter, so that's kind of better. Under the landscaping standards, it says that under 10-415, a 50-foot buffer is to be established between structures on newly created lots and parcels. Well, some of the sizes of lots on Fort Myers Beach don't allow for a 50-foot buffer between structures. It's not possible. So then,
A recommendation to change,
it's just that it needs to be changed to a % or it needs to be changed to something else, and
all right.
This is about setbacks.
That's
Actually,
already,
structural setbacks.
that's already in code.
And that's something we're in the process of evaluating now.
okay, but it's already written into this ordinance as this, so this needs to be adjusted at some point.
Well, it's saying on newly created lots and parcels. So is that in a dividing land or like?
That to be something that sounds like it conflicts with other parts of the code.
Well, I mean, I guess the point is that would need understood and clarified, right, in the final? Okay, I mean, I'd say.
My group had some
clarify it.
discussion of percentage of the size of the lot, just because,
That's exactly, and what is coming in front of us, we've had a discussion about it already, that in larger lots or combined lots, that it's a percentage once it's past 7.5-foot setback. Right now it's 7.5 feet setbacks. So it becomes a percentage. And it's even allowed in some cases where that can, move. So if someone has a really big lot and they want to move their house off to the side so they can have a tree.
that's to be worked on by someone else. Okay.
But not quite
Sorry,
sure why
I-
that's in landscaping standards, honestly.
Yeah, it's cited, 10-4. B. Go back and pull my copy that I wrote out.
I'm looking back at 6. It says the planting of exotic trees and vegetation is to be generally prohibited. Don't you just want prohibited?
Okay, we're back on 6.
It's in the middle.
And it's,
Exotic trees and vegetation generally prohibited. Again, it has to be,
well, exotic
Now
could be
we're saying it.
anything. If Florida friendly, it can be exotic.
You generally prohibit something.
partially in general, basically.
but-
In,
Do you codify that
I
and
mean-
enforce it?
well, this isn't right now, this is just the, sort of the intro. So if you're looking at this and saying, okay, I want to do this, this is,
Like details to follow.
That's just the premise. The intro.
the major
Preface,
premise, and then we'll get into the minor premises, right? Okay, I have a question, Chad question mark on that one. Well, this came up last time about the CL. That you thought you need to replace it, but Chad said that's two separate.
Yeah, I was just about to interject that. So the 1978 Triple CL reference is a reference because of zoning rather than 91 is for state jurisdiction. Vision of resiliency and I forget what it's called these days.
So that needs to stay, basically.
Yeah, so whenever you see that 1978 coastal construction control line, that's basically trying to say the beach zone, environmentally critical zone.
Right. 91, you're saying, right?
1978.
Oh, 78 is the
1991
AC.
is more or less the Scale Boulevard.
Right. There, Rose?
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, under landscaping standards, under building edge plantings, add that Florida-friendly landscape shrubs and ground covers must be used. Right now, number 9.
I mean, I don't object to that. Is that a hardship? Anybody?
They could be exotic, but they just would not be invasive.
Right, correct. Okay.
Then the next one, and this is kind of what Jen was referring to, but it also would have to be under the design plan for new construction. The description of internal landscaping should limit in the amount of the sand, gravel, rock, shell, or pavement to 10% of the area.
Right, I think my notes here from last time is that right now it's in square footage, what it was.
Then maybe that's where we should add artificial grass. Especially if it's not pervious.
You can just say any impervious.
Well, sand, gravel, rock, shell, they are pervious, and even pavers are pervious, but they still want landscaping to have it to only be 10%.
For any material to be used to install. That's not,
What is, 10% seems, my driveway is 10% of my property.
Well, I think this is for landscaping, that would be the,
Driveways are part of landscaping. When you're calculating impervious zone, your driveway is part of that calculation. I don't understand how this deals with the current impervious calculation.
This chapter 10 applies to family, commercial.
Okay, so it's not.
not for single family.
Would we say that wouldn't include that if we did have a single family?
So could this also imply or be included with single family?
Of course, it's up to us to make a recommendation to council of whether or not that's, we want a single family, and if so, what would be included in there? Or that we would like to have a single family, and if they say that's a great idea, go forward with it, then we, with staff to that, and then modify it. More or less the process? Okay. Yeah, final decisions aren't done here, I don't think. It's just, this is gonna create the general, this is gonna help us then come up with what
I
we'd like
understand
to
that.
share with town council, and then we,
Guess
Would
what
be
I was
okay.
asking, if we could include the single family homes in, suggest single family homes.
sure, but I think the point would be, is that the right percentage for single family? Because right now, you assume a multifamily is much, has more property around it, maybe, I don't know, but, I mean, these percentages, the actual hard numbers, potentially would change based on what's appropriate, based on recommendations from staff. And I guess what we would hope to get with.
Because at this point, when someone puts in a pool, can they just basically put in a pool to the setback? The whole backyard could be a pool. No
They have to apply for a permit, because
for
someone,
pool, but I mean,
It
for
goes to the-
landscaping.
It goes to the setbacks.
Goes to the setback, so.
And impervious. The pool is not.
Right.
So
And the decking is also usually not. I don't think pavers are considered impervious.
Just have
Yeah,
3
which
feet
is
of
crazy.
landscaping around property,
There's all kinds of rules,
and a pool is put in.
and they need to be fenced for
Elevated.
safety. An elevated pool, that's another thing.
I meant, the landscaping needs to be
Our
elevated.
landscaping buffers, have come up in a lot of the variances people have asked for pools. Required a lot.
So, Jim, I don't know if you're getting to, is there some sort of limit for impervious versus pervious area? I believe 7% can be impervious,
What is it, 60? 67.
2/3.
includes your house, your driveway, pool, all of that.
Driveway.
push
Sidewalks.
that around.
Sidewalks is towns.
If you have a walkway, I mean,
What does that look like?
most houses
What is 67% of
Wait,
it?
wait,
Like 2/3 of it,
Yeah, 2/3 essentially.
a lot off a third of it.
a lot of homes on the beach are pretty close to that.
A lot of grandfathers that are well over.
Very few people have more pervious.
I think the main structure could be, what, 40%? The lot size, and that's considered impervious. Yes, unless it's really poorly built.
We're saying that pavers are impervious?
That's how they
The
classify them.
water goes through them, it drains.
I think the assumption is you have plastic under them, which is,
No, not even that, it's just that they are not, it's gotta be a category, right? Even asphalt probably has some permeability to it, but you have to draw the line somewhere. So, even like crushed shell, if it's got weight on it, it becomes, I think it's considered impervious.
Yeah, and you have to remember with those pavers, they're compacting the ground below them a lot, that they stay even prior to installation of
Don't they
those
figure that out by
pavers.
like timing how long it takes a certain amount of liquid to go through the, whatever it is? That was how they did it.
There's
Impervious, yeah, the water's not really, I understand what you're saying, and there are, quote-unquote pervious pavers. Those require a lot of maintenance that, it after a while, if they're not cleaned out, et cetera, they.
our
Pervious.
boulevard has, for drainage, actually pavers. It's engineered that way.
And I'm just thinking about my complex just went from blacktop to pavers, and difference is, it's noticeable. We used to have pockets of water all over. Now we have none of that. Now maybe it's just because drainage has been improved. I thought it was because we went to
I mean,
to pervious from impervious.
blacktop is 99, you said it's probably, you know, pervious,
The
but it's, I mean, you're
drainage
talking
plan would
about
have been required for that, and
99.5%
probably
impervious.
improved the.
Right, and so now
Whereas-
we've really
Well,
improved
brooks
it.
are, yeah, I absolutely, I mean, in my opinion, yeah, I mean, you know, that's always gonna be better than concrete or blacktop. Bricks.
To Rob's point, there's probably a cutoff
Right.
on where, how much water is going through. It's not that no water is going through for impervious, it's how much is going through.
I put a crown.
No,
area so
stamped
the water would
concrete
grade
is not
it.
allowed
Yeah,
anymore?
it must be a
Stamped
combination.
concrete is not allowed anymore?
Way better than
We
what
have, we have drainage off of pavers.
Stamped concrete?
Right.
The sidewalks.
The sidewalks,
Or the
yeah.
crosswalks.
Okay, so for the sake
know
of
what that is.
time, let's
I was gonna
continue
say,
here.
we probably, if there's already something in place for 67%, and just wanted to say, under that same section of 10-416, there is categories listed as single-family and two-family residential and multifamily residentials, as well as multifamily residential buildings, timeshare buildings, assisted living facilities, bed and breakfast, inns, da-da-da-da-da. They have commercial buildings, including hotels, motels, resorts, and marinas, and public facility buildings, and then parking and vehicle use areas. So all of that is in here. We don't need to add in single family or two. It's already in the ordinance.
Family's already in there? Okay, gotcha. Perfect.
16. So we want to take this out and just leave it at the 67%.
That's number 10, you're saying?
Well, yes, but then I don't know where I don't see 67% in here anywhere.
Already in some other part of the code, I don't think it's,
Okay.
That's the challenge.
Maybe we'd want to add that as well into here.
I don't
can
like to do
make-
that, because if the other code changes, then they'd have to trace back to everything that might have a reference for it, so.
it's a regular process where they go through the code and remove
Okay.
repetitious.
Forget number 10.
Right, I think we're undergoing that now, aren't we?
That's a whole nother level we're going through now.
Right.
Then there's a table in there that's in that same section of buffer requirements. To include trees and palms, have mature canopy maintained a minimum of 15 feet above the right-of-way to avoid vehicular conflicts. And that would possibly, affect their tree selection for the area, but if you can't trim something up 15 feet and you've got all this construction equipment and semis going through, it does cause problems, so.
So this was versus in here, I think it says appropriately sized, is that my note from last time? And we should actually specifically say at least 15 feet.
Yes.
That was the change. So I would agree with that, it's more specific. Yeah, box truck underneath it. Right. I have 12 and 13 crossed off, was I supposed to?
Joe's the current list of invasive, because if we agreed on doing suggestion number 2, which was to use the website list, which is fluid, then you don't need to worry about
12 and
filling out
13.
12 and 13, so yeah.
Okay, so those can be crossed off, because we agreed on that.
And on the tree protection section, there's a list of protected trees, and those trees were listed probably back in 1990s. It's an older list. Data Springs has theirs, the exact same list, put into an appendix, so you don't have pages and pages listed of trees. So that's-
Suggestion is to just really put it in an appendix
In
versus.
appendix.
Okay. We
And
can
possibly
make that
update it now
recommendation.
that, to go through and have someone update it and make sure this is still valid. Throughout the document, you're calling person director, and that's through all the ordinances, it's director. So then to add or designee, because otherwise there's only gonna be one person that's gonna be the director of checking up on all of this mission.
Yeah, we talked about this last time as well. I think all of our ordinances actually refer to director, correct, Chad? Not,
I'd be lying to you if I said I've read all the ordinances, so.
oh, well, I mean.
Well,
that-
originally.
But I understand it, and we can make that recommendation. You agree? I mean,
Sure.
again, for
Couldn't hurt to
clarification,
put it in there.
we can make the recommendation when it comes time to writing it.
So 16 is to add another section to the landscaping standards to state that the town council may, by emergency resolution, suspend the permit requirement for vegetation removal or installation in the aftermath of a natural disaster such as a hurricane. And the following conditions are met and contained in the resolution. And it's either the suspension is for a defined period of time as set by the town council, or the vegetation removal is necessitated by disaster-related damage. That's just to add in another
Sense to me.
section.
Do you have any, we're giving the town council the ability to,
I mean, do you really, I mean, I understand the removal, but not installation during, or after a hurricane.
Well, if everything's, well, let's say we'll take Bayside Park, or they're gonna put in a whole bunch of trees. Now, if we had a hurricane and they couldn't get to the beach, or they couldn't do whatever, there might not be installation for weeks, and it might be past the deadline that they'd have them in.
My interpretation of that is during a hurricane, they can put invasive plants in.
So,
That's what I'm saying. How do you suspend installation regulations during a hurricane? I understand removal.
okay, but it's the permitted requirement, it's not just any random.
But
Well, we have to change the wording to say,
say
Time
removal.
period or something.
spend the
well, it's the, yeah, your permit would not say that you're gonna put invasives in.
Well, I think what they're suggesting is that if you run out of your permit time,
Right, then you're still okay if there's been a natural disaster.
right, basically if there's a natural disaster and you have to
The
come in
permit,
by September 31st, 30th, and there's a hurricane 15th, well, we're gonna let you do it on November 2nd or whatever.
But building off what he says, people that want to do this kind of stuff are going to look for those gray areas, so it's good to be specific.
I mean, those builders,
They're going to see that and be like, oh, okay.
builders that are expert at that.
I think like that after a hurricane, there's gonna be truckloads of coconut palms.
The coconut
and,
palms in there, yeah.
Australian pines coming onto the island.
Pick them up and bring them over to their place.
Who wants Brazilian pepper? Yeah.
okay, so what wording would you add then to make that really clear?
Say, just remove installation. Okay, removal, yes, but not installation.
So the question is because of a hurricane, do you have to go through the re-permitting process then to install the, your plants that you're gonna install?
Or installation.
Because because there's a hurricane, you have to go through to re-permit?
I mean, you have to somehow word it that the installation of plants is according to,
Pre-permitted installations? Maybe that's the word we're looking
well, I mean, like if they comes through and destroys all my landscaping, does that give me carte blanche because of this, put anything I want in, or do I have to adhere to the ordinance? I think some say installation of approved plants or something.
Okay.
Not,
Yes, I'm
Oh, I
just
see,
looking for additional
suspend
things.
the permit requirement. Now, that's saying that, yeah, you're,
Well,
Free for
maybe
all.
instead
Yeah.
of suspend, say extend. If
I
we
haven't had a
extend, they-
permit
So they're
on
gonna have the permit, and we're gonna extend the time that it's valid.
I don't have a permit on my property and I want to put a whole bunch of stuff in after a hurricane.
I thought it was that you had the permit, you couldn't put it in because of bad weather.
yeah, that's what I thought too, but no, it's actually basically just saying we're suspending even the permit requirement, so you can remove or install.
Yeah, it says,
Maybe take
Without
out
a
the word
permit.
requirement, suspend the
So
permit.
you could cut down all your native, you can cut
You
4
could
native,
extend the
down instead
permit,
of 3.
but not,
Extend the permit,
It's a permit requirement, right?
vegetation removal and/or installation of required vegetation or
that would
requested.
be,
Isn't there something mentioned in the existing code about people can remove dead and
Yes,
trees?
yes,
If
you can.
certified by an arborist, I think it is a,
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be, I don't think, certified. If it's like impeding on something or a danger, others you can.
Well, I think what this is saying is that if you're removing vegetation because of a natural disaster, you don't have to go have it permitted. So if you have 6 native plants on your property that get uprooted and blown away, you're suspended from having, being in trouble for only removing more than 3. Is that a good example?
The removal, I'm okay with, the
Right, the
installation.
installation is is a little bit funky, yeah.
This also requires a town council resolution.
I don't know, I say we put a big old fat question mark next to it and let,
I don't know if it requires a town council resolution, then it seems like the town council could write a resolution to do this without having this in the,
okay, I really don't understand why we have it, unless there's something we're missing. I'm guessing this was in another, you saw this in a different, the committee, yeah, saw this in a different, it's,
So we're saying a resolution by town council would alleviate this at the time of the disaster if needed.
I'm not saying that, yeah, it has to be by emergency resolution. And then, furthermore, it says, it's also in a defined period set by town council at that time, I suppose, so. Emergency, and then they put but again, doesn't
Whatever
change
they-
anything.
Whatever they rule at that time would be pertinent. How is that even necessary?
I mean, if I look at this, if I wanna plant illegal plants, I'm gonna wait for the next hurricane. And
Rose, why-
hopefully there's a resolution from town council, and then I'll be ready to put them all in.
Why do you think that word installation is in there?
Is there
So why-
some
what was the
reason
reason?
to stabilize a bank, or, I don't know, I mean.
So if you had
we'd
a
have to
permit
root
that you were gonna
anyway.
put
Would it
in
be
a
a
massive amount
temporary
of trees or
installation of
something, you had a
anything?
permit for
Hey,
it?
I'm just wondering if it has something to do with like a national or a disaster that maybe you wouldn't want companies coming in with big trees when there's cleaning up that needs to happen. They don't want maybe lines down. I'm just wondering.
No, I'm thinking it's
I think
because
we're
they just
all-
wanted to have, if you had a permit to do something, to put in trees, for example, and you couldn't do it for another extra month or so, it'd just be, your permit would be extended.
Suspend the permit time requirements.
Extend permit? Extend
Oh,
the
it says
permit?
suspend the permit requirements, to suspend the permit time
How about
requirements,
extend?
right? Because that's the point, if we want it to be an existing permit.
Extend the permit time?
I think we asterisk, and for the sake of time, we stop speculating and actually try to understand why that's in there, somebody wrote it at some point because it had some,
I guess, other question, do permits expire?
eventually they have to be, yeah, they do, and it'd be,
That's years. I mean,
it's a while. My feeling is this one's a little micromanaging. I don't think it does much for you.
so that, we got a big fat asterisk there, so we'll revisit that, that's the only one. Go to 17, how about like that?
17, this was something, create a tree fund. We would establish a tree fund which could be used exclusively for plant replacement and to provide necessary maintenance of damaged trees. Penalties, fines, and tree replacement payments as provided for in this article should be deposited into the tree fund, and the public could donate money to it as well.
I think this is already in place.
For some things, like, I know turtle fines are supposed to go toward turtle conservation.
I was talking about this case that came up, and I think that's the intent for people who need to remove a tree. It's kind of like what they do with wetlands, that you can buy wetlands in
Buy,
Palm
yeah.
Island or something,
Buy your way out.
a Palm Island to offset some wetlands that you take out of service.
We'll put a question mark there, but otherwise, if it's not there, then I think it's a great idea.
You
'Cause the
can
town could also
put it there,
use
it
that.
just memorializes it. I don't know whether it's memorialized now anywhere.
The town could also put that fund for actually planting trees in the right of way. if they wanna
That's one of the
actually-
areas, or bay oaks, or,
Exactly.
Is there any, if having a fund for trees, like the fines that go into a fund to pay for trees place, is that memorialized in any ordinance, or is that?
I don't believe it is. I don't know if it needs to do it.
Okay. I'd put it in, and if town council decides they don't want it, or staff
Right.
recommends they don't need
It's
it,
a Marco
If town
Island
manager decides that's not what we want to do with our fine funds, then he can
where we can
It's
do it, we
council
don't need
not
to,
kick it in there. It's worth a shot. We'll see if it exists, which it apparently doesn't.
Okay, and then the last one, consider adding in a vegetation protection and removal section to the landscaping standards. Because Article 5, the tree protection already has that about protecting trees and removing them and all of that, but the landscaping doesn't. So it would just be adding in similar verbiage from one to the other.
In particular familiar with that? Does that sound, so we do have
The
it for
trees
tree
we do,
protection, you're
yeah,
saying, but
the
not
tree protection
vegetation.
we do.
Comments on that from staff on that one?
What's the question, sorry?
What was that, number 18, consider adding a vegetation protection and removal section to the landscaping standard? Article 5 on tree protection, it exists already?
Yes,
And does it make sense now
yes.
to,
have that the director can require that a tree that's protected be moved or replaced, or might have to be replaced if they were cut down. But,
I see, but it doesn't
it doesn't,
for
there's nothing in the
vegetation.
vegetation protection of landscaping, so.
Getting away with the shrubbery loophole.
There are protections for indigenous vegetation communities.
What about somebody,
He's suggesting if it has to move, like right now, you can, director can say, okay, you know, make the deal, say, okay, you can have this space, but you know, this, you need to move it on the property.
So the direction from town council has been, town does not want to maintain or increase its been requiring vegetation plans for development to proposals accordingly.
Right, so the question is, does that make sense for vegetation?
what if someone wants to tear up grass or ground cover and put rock?
But for vegetation in terms of, like at Newton Park, areas around the sign paths, so we talking about, or
Suppose, yeah, but is that just a choice because that's public property, or is that in our ordinance?
They have something at the very end about restoration plan, so just, I mean, this was just to consider adding something.
Okay, we're gonna X that one, 18.
Right, your idea though, if I read this, right, is to give some protection to the understory and the ground cover, not just the trees.
Right.
Right.
But
some protections for community, or ordinance. I need to search it out, but that is our protections for indigenous.
it.
I've got just let me ask a couple of really high questions. So what's your intent? And your intent is to come up with an ordinance that applies to every single-family homes and above?
Yes.
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 And the other question is, and I'm not going to pretend I don't know if this really came up or not. Is there anything in here about consider maybe limiting the percentage of rock that people can lay down? Then you talked about the plastic grass. Similar, it seems like a lot of people, especially if they're running into business, they want to just put down rock, spray it with glyphosate, and try to reduce their maintenance costs. I wonder, as far as your,
We had
We
that in
think
number
about putting
10, but
something-
that,
Look at the difference in front of the whale. It is just night and day. And in front of the whale was all rock. Not very appealing.
Not appealing at all.
Now it is. It's appealing. Weedy,
you don't
but
have to sell that to
appealing.
me, baby.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, something to consider, telling
my-
council is
my-
maybe you want to have a maximum percentage of the landscape area that's rock, so there's at least some area that's green, ground cover, understory, something.
that was number 10.
Yeah.
But when we talked about it, then it was like, well, there's already 67% of,
Well, that was that was more
Yeah.
impervious we were talking about. This is specific to gravel.
'Cause, you know, the rock they put down that they don't drive on, I think it's considered impervious. Once you start,
Impervious.
Pervious.
pervious. And once you start driving on it, then becomes impervious.
I mean, my concern is my street has sold 6 or 7 houses within the last couple months. And they're all turning into weekly rentals, and they're just ripping everything to more manageable for the rental companies or for themselves. But I'm concerned that island's just gonna into a bare landscape convenience.
Then I'll put it to the committee if you want to try to come up with something like that, to saying that you're limited to how much rock you can put down,
I would agree.
impervious.
We put that as number 19 here,
No, 10, just reword 10.
or fit it into 10?
You'd probably
No,
want
but
to
we're saying,
include,
it's saying
you'd probably
currently
want to include shell with that.
67% can be impervious. Well, that's easy to do at rock.
Then you have to say maybe a certain percentage of the impervious surface. The pervious surface can be rock.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, okay.
You can't get all your
Pervious.
pervious surface from rock. You put up some kind of percentage. Think feasible?
Rock.
So it should be
It's possible.
Well, it's a matter whether it's, you know, if it's legal, it has some kind of precedence.
I don't think there's,
Forward, yeah, I mean, it's obviously not retroactive, but that sounds great to me.
It needs to be reworded that pervious,
Sand, gravel, rock.
that pervious landscaping be a certain percentage, no more than a certain percentage
Right.
of stone, whatever.
Well, what it says is currently 67% of the lot can be impervious, so the remaining 30, what is that, 33%? Be pervious. Of that 33%, only X amount can be covered with sand, gravel,
Yeah,
shell.
percentage of the pervious.
Right, perfecto.
what if you're on cottage and your whole yard is sand?
Well, then you'd have to plant something, I suppose, right?
No, I mean, there's, I think we're talking about the process of putting rock down, right?
I mean, and then that goes to the point of what's the trigger for these things? Is it houses, impervious area?
I would be with any change in pervious area.
I think we should not have sand on a beach. You know how much sand?
We're not, I mean, we're talking specifically about rock.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's in 10
All right, now it
has
says,
sand.
yeah, and that's why I included sand, gravel, rock, shell, so you'd have to say gravel, rock, shell, maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's something.
The whole thing that's referring to is to change it to that F. It says this little F in the front there. The whole thing reads that all interior landscaped areas not dedicated to trees or other preservation of existing vegetation must be landscaped with grass, ground cover, shrubs, or other approved landscaping materials. And this must be so noted on the landscape plans. And it says sand, gravel, rock, shell, or pavement are not appropriate landscape materials. That's the existing ordinance, so we were just putting in a percent.
Fort Myers Beach,
Yeah.
I mean, sand is,
Can we just change it to, I mean, pavement is under impervious. Doesn't need to be included, so I would just say gravel, rock, or shell is a certain percentage of the zone. You know, because pavement is already covered.
Can I ask a question? When you're saying shell, you're talking about crushed shell?
Correct.
Okay, because I know a lot of places are using crushed shell in lieu of mulch.
That's not really.
Crushed shell around plants instead of mulch, so.
well, if you do that and you're putting them around plants,
Right, then you have
this
to,
section is a little different.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, I think we're in agreement that that should be in there. So what the final numbers need to be, I mean, worked out and actually the wording, but right now it's in theory, and we get approval for town council to move forward with it, so.
I mean, just, I would remove sand and pavement. Because sand on a beach is restricting sand, I think.
And pavement is not,
It's covered by
Impervious.
something else,
it's in a
impervious.
different category.
Yeah, so just gravel, rock, or shell. And then what percentage of pervious?
Well, then you could keep the 10% of the 33%.
I would maybe say.
That'd be really
what
specific.
percentage
Yes.
of your pervious area must be vegetation?
It's just or vegetation versus yes,
23%.
rock, sand, or shell,
Percent of your pervious area needs to be vegetation.
as it reads now, right? I mean, it's proposed here, 10%, you're saying of the area.
So just switch it up.
And right now, currently 67% can be impervious, so that comes down to 3%. Again, we don't have to, we're not writing the code right now, but.
Again, I think general policy directions, what y'all are looking for, what
Right.
advise council, and then staff run with it, and then we can come back to you and we can get down more into the details.
Okay, so I think it's motion time for invasive vegetation management.
I guess I would make the motion then to move forward with proposing these suggestions to the town council, their approval
As edited?
as edited.
Second that motion?
Question or discussion? Any opposition? Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Rose.
Larkin. Wow.
Thank you, Rose.
Exactly.
Woohoo! She's like, yes, moving forward, right? That's a pretty big one, though, I have to tell you. That's a big one. Okay, so next on the agenda here, 48, let's gonna Arbor Day tree event.
Right,
Okay,
so, I wanted to get some feedback from, Murph on this. A couple of years ago, we had a Arbor Day event, third Friday of January, I believe it's Florida Arbor Day, where the town gave away trees for residents to plant in their yards. Went fairly well. Definitely some things we can improve upon, and we do better and get more participation. I wanted to see if talk to a local native landscaper and just to see what's in stock and the cost and recommendations, and 2 of the 4 of their recommendations were in here. What they had recommended was there's a 7-year apple, which I wasn't familiar with, orange Geiger, Bahama strongbark, and cinnamon bark. Of those 4 that they suggested, 2 are in this the shades of Fort Myers Beach. So if you want to take a look at those, these are all kind of smaller to medium-sized trees. Which, some of the concerns have been regarding, if we're going to plant a mahogany, it's a 50 canopy. Do we really have space for that? Or an oak. And there was also feedback, which is why I was kind of tuned to the orange Geiger, is kind of people like, kind of flowering trees. They're native flowers. Geiger appears to be. I was kind of leaning towards orange Geiger and Bahama strongbark. Back at least on the.
What's the first one you said? I'm sorry.
A 7-year apple, orange Geiger, a strongbark, cinnamon bark. I understand maybe y'all aren't familiar with all of these, and I'm still not very familiar with the apple or the cinnamon bark. I wouldn't be able to pick them out. like I said, the orange geiger and the Bahama strongbark are in the shades book, kind of, you know, suggestions for local trees. There's, you know, I always like the gumbo limbo. They're kind of bonsai'd up to be trees. Tried those two last year and there wasn't a strong uptake. Better or worse. And caveat to all of this is that whenever you're giving out, you know, a lot of trees, it kind of starts to shape the plant and community structure. So
There's two that you select, basically?
I was personally just leaning towards the orange geiger and the Bahama strongbark. And again, I also like gumbo limbo, native tree, and it's also the town tree, as well as sea grape trees. I think last year I tried to do that, and the nursery kind of came back with more. I believe it was more of a shrub cultivar, where there's different cultivars of grapes, but I guess some are a little bit more branchy, and then you have some that are raised that are to be more tree-like.
Stem, yeah.
I saw one in Polynesia that looked like a giant oak tree. You're massive.
Been right here in our parking lot, we have one, a haircut, but
I agree with Chad's recommendations because I have the all-native little guide here, and the orange geiger that you said has flowers is attractive to butterflies. And the Bahama strongbark has a little bird figure, so it's good for birds, so
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supporting that recommendation.
I think those will both have more appeal though, also because they're not ones you hear of that often. Think of orange, you think Florida, you know, and then the Bahamas, people love just saying Bahamas, so. I mean, I'm appealing to like what people like to hear and say.
Did you mention how tall these trees?
that was going to be my next question, kind of once we went with species. I also got, this is kind of more what they had in stock. With the orange geiger, they had a 15-gallon for $90 and 25-gallon for $150. And the Bahama strongbark all they had was a 7-gallon for $35. So expensive, you know, for a giveaway. But having said that, you know, we're getting a nice, more mature tree that is more likely to survive, and there may be something to be said about higher quality and less volume rather than trying to have a lot of volume that nobody really.
Right.
Did the nursery take any of the trees back that weren't taken?
Yeah, they took a lot of the trees back, and they specifically said we'd like to avoid that this time.
Okay.
And the town, also Public Works was gracious enough to buy some and use it on our public lands.
If we do something you're suggesting, maybe we could have for a line of different trees with descriptions of them, and then they can pre-order, so the town's not stuck with that.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Just think the sea grapes and the gumbo, they're so common already. People might be a little more, that's what I was saying about the others, like more different.
You can actually, anybody heading south or north, I guess. Where's there's a couple right in the next to the Boulevard in front of the,
Orange Geigers,
yeah,
Tuckaway.
Tuckaway Cafe, right there by the ice cream
Beautiful.
shop too, yeah.
Lots of
Beautiful.
birds
Yeah,
and
they're
flapping
nice.
butterflies.
But you have to remember, you have to plant trees, it's gotta be the right tree for the right spot. That's why the maximum height is, and the
See, for
canopy
me,
is always
I
a
think the
big
salt tolerance isn't that
consideration.
great for orange geiger, didn't we discuss that? So for,
They are. It says they're good for the beach.
It's all of these have good drought and wind and
water coming all the way up into my
Water
front
tolerance.
yard out of my swale.
Oh, how are these given out? It's just like,
last year I think we had an agreement that they would, you know, if they're taking this, they
was to any homeowner. Now, one thing that's coming up too, that the Bay Beach Lane Association, you know, that owns the old golf course. You're aware of this, right? They're doing a whole landscaping program there. I don't know if it's something you want to offer to them, or if Murph wants to recommend we for them native trees.
It should be
idea.
encouraged. I don't know what we can afford, though.
Right.
We don't have to do the whole thing. You can decide what to maybe appropriate.
They won't use the same species.
An osprey nest.
And you're saying single-family homes only? Like in condominiums? Ask one of these trees at this bargain price?
Actually, they're,
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue, you know, both with Bay Beach Lane and with condos is that they have developmental orders. I'm not sure how that might affect their landscaping plan. Matter, maybe I'm just, I don't know if there's, usually, if you're doing something in a condo, you kind of have to, you need the authorization from the condo, not just the condo owner, right? You need the HOA
Association.
president or the condo association president. You're going through a board meeting, et cetera. The calculation with,
Could a condominium that has a number of units?
I'm certainly not opposed to it. I mean,
It
more
would be
trees,
something that we could decide.
more trees anywhere is a good thing, so.
Well, my understanding too, because that came up, I heard this second, third hand, is that the Bay Beach people thought that, well, they've got 1,000 units, they can get 1,000 trees. I think the implication is more that, you know, the people, the single-family homes where mostly open land is, where the trees are intended for. That's the town council can decide, and you guys can recommend, you can advise town council.
challenge would be then that you have to extend it to every condo association.
And again, those condo areas are already kind of obligated to have minimum plantings, whereas the single families don't probably have a little bit more need for the trees.
It would be, amenable for everybody just to say that if there's actually any left over, they, potentially would have first crack if they wanted.
We're gonna try the pre-ordering, so we don't, any.
Well, how do you
We're gonna get people to order them.
I didn't
So we
hear that.
order like
Buy.
maybe 10 of each that we
We register?
decide, and then
Yeah.
with some information to give out on specifications of the tree.
I see.
And then
When
they
advisory
can
goes out that
decide-
says Arbor Day's
It's
coming if you're
RSVP,
interested.
yeah, that's kind of a form
Oh,
on the
boy, that's a
website.
great idea, yeah. I
How
see.
many trees per
Missed
home or?
Maybe we said one, but I'm not,
That's true, it's one, I think.
Where is this done?
But you have a neighbor.
Where is this done, Chuck?
last,
Give them with me.
2 years ago, we did it at, recreational center.
The third Friday of January? And that's what you're thinking?
That's Arbor Day for Florida, so
Arbor Day, right.
making an event out of it, now that we're kind of a little bit more,
From last year, yeah. I missed.
it was budgeted for last year, it's just with everything going on.
How much was
Or
budget?
2019 I missed.
1,000?
It's fun.
You didn't use a whole
Yeah,
budget?
I don't recall the numbers, but I mean, maybe.
So to that same point, up to $10,000, if you have RSVPs up to 6,000, then do you make the other 4,000 available to projects like Bay Beach or requests
That's a
from condos? Right, because that would technically be an overage, and that could be a way to help.
Maybe it's good to reach out to the Bay Beach Lane people.
Yeah, what they want.
Well, but again, I mean, you just can't make it Bay Beach, that's the point. So,
But they have this old golf course project.
of course they do, but, I won't even throw another name out there, but somebody else has a project, that they'd like to, an area that got beat up during the reconstruction, and they want to.
I mean, I don't think anybody would necessarily be opposed to anything within reason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying, again, to be fair, I think, typically. You can't pick winners and losers, so.
Oh, are we doing this?
So the selection should, I mean, I don't think we
Yeah, I
have
was
to vote
looking
on it,
on
he
some-
just wants feedback, right?
Support, yeah, on species, and then, the
Who oversees
smaller
this?
versus,
You do?
to do.
Are you asking for our participation
well-
for this as well?
Sure, yeah, I mean, I definitely foresee the pop-up tent being there possibly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good
Will help
idea, yeah.
the January
But, you know,
calendar.
just, again, general guidance, you know, y'all think, you know, possibly spending, getting the 25 gallon, that's 150 versus the 15 gallon, that's 90. Getting the bigger trees available, spending a bit more per
Yeah,
tree,
I would absolutely say that.
just given last time.
I would recommend that, I mean, in my opinion.
for-
You go with the larger trees, you have better success rates.
Especially if they're pre-ordering.
Right, right.
They might give us a, and could we have the tree fund set up by then? They could make a donation.
Good idea.
Right on, sissy.
Yeah, I think that this town deserves a better quality, more expensive.
A
for
certain
it.
commitment to it and, I like the idea of the orange Geiger. I'm not sure what the Bahama, Strongbark is, but Bahama Strongbark in there? Yeah. Cool.
25 gallon, that's gonna weigh, what, 200 pounds?
That's a good point. What's the, gallons is about 25?
Some of us are certainly not hoping.
Well, water is
Gallon.
7 pounds. How much does a 25 gallon
Actually about 8.
tree weigh?
Water's 8.
Is it gonna be trouble for people to
Pounds
pick it
per
up
gallon.
and,
All good questions, Doctor.
25,
I mean, that's
yeah.
a big,
All right, who
25,
delivers?
you know,
25
It was just
times
water.
8 pounds per gallon would
it
be
would be
200 pounds, yeah.
plus the tree.
If they want a free tree, they'll,
Like I
Make
said, then you get a
plans.
commitment. Or you sign up when you RSVP, whether you want a 15 or a 25. Getting too, it doesn't seem to be. Whatever the two choices were,
Give them
20,
the option, right?
or, yeah.
Problem-free.
I'm just throwing it out there, Jen, I'm not telling you.
I mean, how big of trees did you
make
give
one
out in the
work for
past,
you.
They don't
How
all
many
come in
gallon?
both sizes, though.
roughly?
How tall?
No,
are
the
they?
Strongbark's only
How many-
coming
The
in the
gallons.
7 gallon.
Just
Yeah, I'm not, I mean, 25 gallons is gonna be,
big,
it's gonna.
it'd take 2 or 3 people to put it in a pickup truck. How many people have a
I'll
pickup truck?
recruit some big
Does-
guys.
does the nursery that you're speaking with, do they have a delivery service?
Sure they do.
Maybe the price can be in.
How many trees are we talking about?
It would depend on RSVPs.
10,000 divided by 125, what was it, what was the price?
For the orange Geiger, $150.
10,000 divided by 150.
So I guess we can ask the
That's
nursery.
not a delivered price, that's just a.
Right.
But that's just the town council, I mean,
Maybe-
That's roughly 66.
I think, yeah, this particular, we do, for projects with them, so they're probably giving us a third rate. A bit more.
how many trees do we normally give out in a particular?
Yeah, what's the run rate?
How many-
Idea?
How many did we give last time?
Last time we did it, yeah. Was that 2019 then?
I'd say less than 20.
Oh, so 66 trees is not. Yeah, I was just wondering if you normally gave out 100 and now we're only gonna give out 67.
Right, no, I think we're planning for the 100 and it was a deal. Or was taken.
We could even look at, you know, if there are people who want a tree but can't get it to their house, maybe we can get some volunteers and,
Exactly,
Or
yeah.
some of the
I've got a
trees.
Truck, I mean, getting it up in there, but
that's for delivery, not planting.
somebody with a, well, of course, that's right. So
Exactly.
play your cards right, you have that pre-dug hole and then you just ask them to set it right in there for you. Oh, maybe we can find somebody that's got a lift gate. Awesome. This is the strong bark here, huh?
Mhm.
Nice looking plant. Tolerance medium. Hot. Takes on seawater twice a year. Is that considered
Yeah, I mean, you know,
medium?
look at the salt tolerance of a live oak, you know.
Right.
Plenty of live oaks.
Live oaks? Oh, sure, right.
In addition to finding out how much how, the size of the trees in those particular pots to find out how fast they grow. Like if they're gonna get in, a smaller pot and the tree grows, 12 inches a year, that would be great.
That's some of the information we can give when they come to look at the different trees in reserve. We can give them, how the growth.
Grows 3 inches a year, then maybe want the larger version.
Or the PIO can put it out as an announcement to grab the trees and.
Okay, so how can we help you? Did you get enough information, and do we think those are two good recommendations? Those are great recommendations. The Orange Geiger and the Bahama Longbark. Welcome, that'll be a good one. That's on the 3rd Friday of January.
Yes, sir.
People that are
First.
watching, yeah, is it the 21st?
This is a spotlight for January article due.
21st December. 21st of December, basically the first. No, I'm sorry. 1st of December.
1st of December,
January. Did you say for January?
for January.
January 1st.
Okay, January 1st, okay.
January 1st, and you get a reminder on the 21st of December. I send
Okay.
my little program now. I'll send you a reminder.
When
or
does
I'll
the spotlight
send-
go in?
It depends on when they put it in. See, that's the thing. We are up to
Maybe
their.
I could do the
Sometimes
article
it's
on
you
the.
submit it and you think it's gonna show up and then it shows up 2 weeks later. Like Bill told me that right up front. He goes, you can submit them, but there's not, it's not really a real consistent, it's up to them, the editor, so. My objective is to try to get it in that first of the month.
Yeah, I was
Ideally, it's by our meeting.
just thinking if it would be helpful to do the article on the tree giveaway.
Because the Observer came today, I think, right? Was there our articles in there?
Yes.
Oh, yours was in there, Rob? Okay, perfect. So,
It was good.
excellent. No, I
Sorry, it wasn't about the butterflies.
But would it make it in time?
mine, yeah. Pardon me?
Would it make it in time before the 3rd Friday of January? Would it make it in time in the Observer to do the
I
article?
would think so, yeah.
Okay.
I would think so, yeah, because the idea is to try to get it by this meeting, actually, which is the second Wednesday.
But, Nathan may write a story about that regardless of,
Oh,
I'd like to.
Yeah, he would definitely, pick that one up. Okay, so shall we move on for the sake of time here, James? Excellent.
I think that ship has sailed.
Good job, Chad. So, next up, rental boat propeller.
Let me save you on this one because
Check for it.
I put it on the council's agenda moving forward.
Okay,
So now there's some work to be done to find out what the jurisdictions are. Everything we do with the boat is pretty much handled either at a national or a state level.
exactly, yeah.
But this is about a rental operation, so we may have some,
jurisdiction.
and if we can't get it through as an ordinance, maybe we can get it through as an incentive somehow to help.
I've been getting a lot of feedback with it, and still, I didn't hear that we could or could not do it, so I continue moving forward with all my research and stuff, so
So
got
it
a lot of
is,
stuff on that.
it is moving forward with, through the council, so you probably don't really have to worry about it too much at this point.
Okay.
But I've also taken, as from advice from one of the fellow councilmen, I've reached out to a councilman on Sanibel about them, and I'm going to reach out to Bonita Springs.
Right.
See if we can maybe get a little regional thing going on.
Right, yeah, for the sake that you've got Bonita Beach rentals that you're always seeing here, so it would help then if they find us on it. Yeah, that's an excellent idea from, I think it was the vice mayor.
Counties are tougher.
Is there anything
so.
more I can or should be doing to help with that, or?
A lot of it, the biggest
more
question,
hands, yeah.
honestly, the biggest question I have about it is can we tell people what to put on their boat?
They have to have HF and like, all that
That's
kind
not
of
us, though.
stuff. I know that's not us, but
That's at a higher level than us. So we're limited to it. And like I said, the only way I think that'd probably work is if somebody, because they're renting it from our property.
Excellent, so.
thank you very much.
Boy. Yes. All right, so let's move on to the next one, marinas and boat pump outs.
Now, but before you talk about this too, because this is an item came up with us about we have a an additional allocation for the sheriff's office for additional boat patrols for them. And so the town council recommended that we can't tell them necessarily what to do. We recommended two things that they look into, and these are both my suggestions. One is that they can check on pump outs. I know it's tricky. The other is that I've heard that like dawn, pre-dawn, a lot of gung-ho fishermen are out blasting through manatee zone, so that no one's watching.
Well, who says they're fishermen, first of all?
Well, who else gets up that early to go blasting?
I mean, it's bored at home, I guess, but yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if that interferes.
That's
with
a
what
good
you
one.
say,
No, I think,
but let's move forward with us making a soft request to the sheriff's office to make that a priority for the extra patrols that we are paying for.
I heard that, but I'm not sure how they would actually
Coast Guard is responsible for it,
see
though.
the pump outs, you know, I mean, all the help we
So
can
this is
get.
Coast Guard?
Coast Guard is the only one responsible. Coast Guard is the only entity, enforcement in the whole country, which can board your boat, board your property without permission. Sheriff cannot. Coast Guard, if they say, can I board your boat? And they say no, they go like, all right, here's the rifle with the wrong end pointed at you, and I'm boarding your boat. Sheriff, if a sheriff comes up and said, can I board your boat? You can say no.
Same as so if they need a warrant to board your
That's
boat.
FWC as well, so you're suggesting.
Yep. Only Coast Guard can board a boat without permission.
You think the Coast Guard would be, gonna go and board boats looking for fish?
They have a lot of new recruits constantly needing something to do. I mean, they're the ones responsible for pump outs, not for compliance. So that's the entity. Sheriff might scare some people into doing the right thing. So what I was gonna say is the information I got from Rose and Jennifer, there's a lot of educational things out there, excellent
And
stuff.
we've been giving a lot of it away.
So, how many boaters are getting it?
We ask. There's always a conversation with anything we give out. There's always a conversation.
I think marinas, targeted education, I think, with enforcement are the two keys possibly to help compliance. But the only other thing would be if we could somehow reduce the fee and make it easier for them to get a pump out.
I'm of the opinion that the $5 is still just so minimal.
It's an administrative headache probably to collect it.
You pull up to the dock,
I mean, I'm talking
Give 'em $5,
not only
I mean-
for the person coming in to give $5 for a pump out, they have to get from their boat on shore to here, fill out a form, give them $5, it's an appointment time, and then they go back to their boat.
no, they don't though, Vice Chair, you pull up to Snook Bite.
I'm talking the anchored boats.
Oh, you're talking about just the mooring field.
No, I'm talking anchored.
Oh, anchored, okay, right, if they want to put in a request, right, they have to make an appointment.
Right, for
And you
anybody.
can do that as a resident also, have them come to your dock, but like you said, you have to actually administratively make the appointment, have them stop by, but I mean, most boaters, I think, you just pull right into any of these docks that have pump outs and you give them a fin.
So, I mean, talking all the people who are liveaboards, which probably aren't the most up-to-date in laws and regulations.
Right.
And a lot of them, I mean, no disrespect, but a lot of them are just a step above homeless. You know, so that $5 could be their next meal for the next week.
I know for a fact, my wife used to work at Chapel with the homeless, a number of homeless who live on the boat.
Yeah.
Then houseboats have different regulations and boats. And the pump out regulations are different. Logistic nightmare. So how to increase pump outs education with some type of threat, and if the sheriffs can kind of encourage people. I think that's,
I mean, the regulations, if you're anchored in Estero Bay, I mean, there's regulations.
there's no pump out in Estero Bay.
Exactly, you have to go 3 mile, right, you have to go to
Nine.
international waters,
Gulf
9,
Coast.
right, it's 9 miles here, international water, so.
Golf is 9, Atlantic is 3.
So, my point is that there are regulations, from my understanding, right, that you have to, if you are not at sea and you're on anchor, let's say here, you have to have,
A Y connection for your tank. It has to be wire tied, closed.
correct, that's what I'm saying. So the answer to the permanently anchored vessels that are in our bay,
Or even for
some don't even have motors on them, right? So how would you go to a pump out? I mean, you have to have them come to you, but those would be the ones that would potentially be the targets for, let's say, the Coast Guard to board and inspect.
But all the transients. I mean, there's, probably 50 boats anchored in the bay?
I'm not
Not
sure
more
it'd be
in field.
50, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a manageable amount.
Yeah.
Why do they have to make an appointment? Can't they just go out maybe like twice a day
Because
and,
they're never there. I think it's a really difficult thing for the
but if they
honey
know
dipper.
at a specific time,
I think they
say,
find that it's a lot of expensive manpower and boat time going out for people who aren't there or don't need it. That's my understanding.
If somehow radio or telephone, say, pump me out Tuesday at 4, or making an appointment, other than having to come into this building and fill out a form.
we know that for sure, that they actually have to come in person and fill out a form. Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe we can ask them to just call the harbor master. Right now they have an office and everything and make their appointment verbally.
At this time, that's not available. That would be somehow to make it a website, a telephone call, email,
Text.
something that other than personally coming into this building. And some of the people who need the pump out most probably don't want to be anywhere near law enforcement.
Good point.
Now we're stereotyping. Vice chair.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's logistics. And then we were at the water clarity thing on Friday. Steve and I went to this. And the guy said the amount of boat fecal material in the water is minuscule as compared to what's coming down the rivers.
Correct.
I'm just quickly Googled Fort Myers Beach pump out, and it says request a pump out. Pump outs might be requested through the online form above, calling the mooring field office.
That's not what I was told just a couple.
Must have heard you and
you got the ball rolling
Correct.
Listen
already.
to our meeting.
We need to advertise that.
that one, yeah.
I do with the pop-up to,
You're gonna go up to the moored boats.
That could be the sheriff's contribution to this. They could deliver the
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 paperwork.
phone number and whatever.
Not a bad
You
idea,
can tell.
actually.
With the town boat, they could go and,
The Coast Guard, they could just deliver the
Deliver.
information. I mean, you said there's 50 boats, it's a half-day stop, and here's the information to get it.
One of the most dangerous stops for police officers, probably for Coast Guard, is to going into somebody's home. More police officers are killed by that. And also, well, actually, more police officers this year were killed by COVID and anything else, but
why couldn't the town go and knock on the boats or say hello and
good. I don't think that's
a
something,
little bit less intimidating than or the
In deep
sheriffs?
pump out boat actually going around.
Maybe,
Stuff
yeah.
on it.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Do we have what do we want to do with
Okay, which,
this item?
well, that's a bit
I
tricky,
don't think
because
we're at a
again,
point for a motion, but I mean, where are we
you
going?
can't direct staff
Oh.
to do anything.
No, of course not. We would have to make it, that's what I'm saying, a motion would be to inform town council of our wishes on bus.
One thing I'd also recommend, Steve, is maybe, Kathy Kathy Light.
Huh?
Light, that maybe reach out and her and have a conversation, because there's a bit of overlap between,
Right.
and find out what they do. We come up with an idea of how we can,
Right, well, I have to say, we tasked the vice chair with contacting
Well, that's-
ACC to figure out how we were gonna work,
We just know what to ask, so we're asking something that works within the existing system, that doesn't require an inordinate amount of time, staff time to execute, and then ask that of town council.
I spent over an hour talking with, who's the guy that's in charge of that? You introduced? Austin. About, and at that time when I talked to him, which was maybe 6 months ago, that it was in-person piece of paper, so I'm glad that's changed.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things have changed with the mooring field being taken in-house by staff, listening to concerns and trying to, a little more up to date.
Need that information disseminated. That,
I mean, I would just encourage you to get on the website and,
I don't have a tar loop on my boat, so it won't help me.
yeah.
But I mean, how to get that information out to the boaters who might be violators.
Have a conversation with Austin. I mean, he's out on the water daily, more tuned.
Signage on the boat?
Sorry?
Signage on the boat.
Field office, I'm sure you're welcome there anytime.
No, I mean, on the actual pump out boat, a sign saying the website and telephone number.
All right. Great motion.
All right, I make a motion that the pump out boat has better signage to help urge people to use the pump out services.
Second that motion?
Right on, any discussion?
But make
Yeah,
the number, make it big.
Any opposition?
Should have had the boat in the boat parade.
Yeah, actually, we should.
Town had 2 boats, right?
Austin was the
Yeah,
leader.
they did have a boat, I think, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
They just got a new boat too, I think, right?
We got a new honey dipper, which,
Yeah, but then they
That's
traded
it?
the other one in actually to offset the grant, and so it was even, yeah, it's a good deal.
They won too, a prize.
Did win a prize, yeah, I
Yep.
saw that in the newspaper. PZA #1 in Austin.
Absolutely.
Oh, any opposition to the motion? Okay, motion carries unanimously. One in minutes, I think. I guess I got it. It's a pretty easy one. Good. So we've got a few things for the town council next meeting. So moving on here, let's get to the administrative stuff here. So the Good Citizens Award, the AKA Murphy. Do we have any nominations? Did use a bank person last time. We do have one more in the bank, but do we have anybody new?
That group that you took,
I haven't heard back. I need their story, so I'll submit that next month once I hear back from them.
No? We'll use yours, Mary Rose.
Actually, I guess I could give a story. We were doing a pop-up at Times Square and came across a group. It's the Apartment Foundation. They help people find homes in the workforce, affordable housing. They get together on occasion and come out to do a beach cleanup. So I saw it, took a picture, just waiting on more information from their foundation.
I'll have to get a picture of it. There's several sand sculptures around Newton Park.
Very
And I
nice.
talked to one of the people doing it, and they said, please talk to town council about encouraging that they have a sand sculpturing next year.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
It's a shame we didn't have one this year, actually.
I think it's a chamber event, and what's the
like
chamber?
chamber, I
Well,
mean,
that was Chambers' decision
The
to,
organizers are the ones who decided not to do it this year.
was
Yeah,
the
it
organizer.
was
so okay.
because a lot of people couldn't travel. A lot of the artists are from other countries.
international, yeah.
Oh,
But
right.
just, that
right.
would be a good way to help encourage.
Mhm.
Because there's like 4 not really good sand sculptures right around Newton Beach.
They just, yeah, they're working on another one. So I'll make a nomination. I nominate Mary Rose's Sand Dollar Bank.
I still have that information. Is this a good time for it?
I think it's an
Okay.
excellent.
All right.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
One thing
And-
I'd recommend when you write the story, if you have a good picture, works with the story, submit that as well.
We always do. we always, well, sometimes it's somebody standing there, but yeah,
Not for the Murphy,
Murphy.
for the story itself,
Besides just a
Get the story.
headshot, I see.
not just head, so if you're doing like a picture on birds or turtles, whatever, you get a appropriate picture, it adds a little bit of,
To it. Yeah, excellent.
Do I send it to you or to Chad?
To Chad, and you can copy
copy
me.
Okay, I'll copy.
Yeah. Great, same thing with the with your story. For January, we have Jennifer Rusk up. I'll send you a reminder, 21st of December for January 1 delivery, thereabouts. 800 words, 600 to 800 words, include your headshot, unless you want me to use the one on file. Want an updated headshot, then please include it.
I forgot my headshot. I don't know what they use.
I found one
Uh-oh.
on your website.
Oh, okay.
I hope you don't mind. Oh, actually, I
it the one
think
we
the
hold in
article's
the
in the
drill?
newspaper. I'll have to take a look. I'm pretty creative. I can find stuff, so.
Right now.
Perfect. Also, it's a good time to also inform, do you know what you're doing yet, Jennifer, in January? Or is it, give us a peekaboo?
I was
or-
thinking of the Friday, the third Friday of the Arbor tree,
Oh.
but I'll come up with something else if Nathan's gonna write that, then I guess we
Okay, I'm just,
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to,
have a couple stories, so
Yeah.
maybe we can the first week get Nathan to write the story, and then maybe right before, if we can get the Observer
if you can
to
confirm the actual species,
yeah,
then
I'll
maybe you
work with the
can
PIO. I mean, now that I've gotten some.
highlight the
highlight the
species.
species, and so people can, have a preview of what we're gonna have, and, if the trees fit their
Include a little bit about,
landscaping.
right, making sure it's the right tree
Birds,
for the
the
right
butterflies.
I
spot.
could come up with
Beautiful.
800, no problem.
These are all world, I'm telling you. So, for Mary Rose's sake and Wendy's sake, we reassigned 2022 Shoreline Spotlight Calendar. Filled in those blanks. So, Mary Rose, if you wouldn't mind, April.
Sure, I'll write it down.
Actually, we have you down for April and November. And Wendy's May and December. We just went down the list, boom, 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 and we rolling it around, so.
Okay.
Did you get those, Wendy? You
Got
good
it.
with that?
May
And I
and
will get you
December.
reminders, and we'll bring it up at each meeting, so. Thank you for all your efforts for 2021. Those were awesome. Don't dump out. That's awesome. We pop up environmental adventure booth coming soon, March. And Rusk. Okay, so anyway, so recap.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
No, I was just straight into it. Members' items and reports. Let's go from the right today. Wendy, any item?
I
members'
don't
items?
have an item, but I do have a question.
Hmm?
Is there an archive of topics that have already been done? The Observer, first time I've gotten a copy. I mean, if I go online to the site, I'll be able to
The
find.
Observer? Probably have to go to the Observer.
yeah,
To the
I think
Observer.
you're,
Looking for that, and I didn't
Ex-Murph
find it.
chair.
That's exactly what I was just looking for.
a lot of times they don't even
Beach.
show up on their website.
Yeah, I
You'd
didn't.
have to actually dig up the old mega.
I actually was looking online and there was like one in 2021 and then it was 2018 and 2017. I thought,
Probably have 10 years maybe, or 8 years worth of
Got
stories.
copies of all
I'll go
my
to them and
submissions from
I'll
you
just-
guys.
'cause I don't want to.
As long as it has been recent, because I've even thrown a couple that were published previously and no one.
Right, there you
The
go.
beach library might have an archive of them.
Okay, good idea.
And you
Is the
can
one with mine out there now?
Yes,
I
it
need
is.
to grab it. I need to
put it on the cut it out and put it in the
Yeah.
refrigerator.
put it on
Okay.
my own.
Good. Very good question. Thank you. Wendy, any members' reports?
Thank you.
That's the photo I used.
That's
Bill.
not bad.
Yeah.
Look like a fat 5-year-old without my beard, but it's
Well,
okay.
hey, you had your chance.
And the Murphy Award.
Yeah, see that? Good timing.
Dynamic
Cool.
pest control.
So, any members' reports?
I actually had a question about something we were talking about the other meeting about this beach renourishment. We didn't bring up, and I thought about it afterwards, what happens to the wildlife that gets covered up, the sand dollars and the sea stars and that? How are they affected? Does anybody really look at that?
I'm sure the
Dad's like, "Shut up."
FWC and the DEP, I'm sure the DEP does and the FWC.
It's, you know, I can come back to you on that.
'Cause I don't know, I just loved it, because we're always on live shelling, but then we're gonna cover these animals up, and I know they're not gonna survive.
You know, I mean, the shells have a way of moving through the sand, like the coquinas, they move their way through the sand, so.
Those animals are fine, but like the sand dollars and the sea stars, those animals need to be at a certain depth, and if they're covered, you know.
Yeah.
Those are the two, the ectoderms are the ones I'm really thinking of.
I mean, the birds love it because that, all kinds of stuff is chewed up and sent onto the beach, so
yeah.
they have a field day.
Yeah. It was just something I was curious about, if there was reports or any information on that. I couldn't find much.
Time to correct the record also. At the last time we discussed, I misspoke. It's the following year.
Thought that was a little,
Yeah, I did too. I got home, I'm just thinking, and I checked with the turtle experts, and I said, no, it's the following year, you idiot. So, idiots here telling you it's actually the following year, that you're not allowed to relocate them so they can determine the, statistically how it affects the population. So, Rose, any
Yeah,
members?
I have a couple of items here that, the first one, is in reference to the, beach wheelchairs that the town has available. I was speaking with a couple, the, man was at the end of a Moby mat in a beach wheelchair, that was his personal property, and I suggested the use of the beach wheelchairs that the town makes available, and they said that, yes, they have tried them, but the problem is that the woman wasn't strong enough to push it in the sand anymore, because they're all manual. So I'd like to suggest that the town invest in a motorized one, at least one that we can make available, so that those who want to take advantage but don't have a caregiver who's strong enough to push on the sand
Nah,
might have a chance.
be an issue with motorized vehicles on the beach.
Currently, ordinance doesn't allow that, right?
It's,
I mean,
it's an allowed use.
Oh, no.
I see motorized wheelchairs out there that, there's like a tank one down
Yeah.
there.
Well, then
I have no idea how expensive it is if the town would want to do it, but I think that it might be something we would look into. And the second thing is, and this, both of these deal with signage. We put some signs out so people don't disturb the birds on the sandbars. But my understanding is, and I've heard this from a couple of people, the signage is difficult for people to understand. There's too many words in it. And what the suggestion is that we just put up there, nesting birds, X feet away.
Yeah, I can actually comment on both those, because
Well, I'm getting it, and I've gotten it from.
the 88 thing was, that went through MRF a long, long time ago.
Yeah,
And I think they settled on the two manual chairs. The other ones are more expensive and more maintenance intensive, the electric ones.
okay.
But it is something, if there's enough demand, certainly town council can look at allocating funds for that. Bird signs, that was something that I actually drive selecting that one because it was already an FWC certified sign. I've heard from Beach Patrol that it lacks specificity, so people don't know if they can't walk down the beach.
I heard that.
And if you try putting it out where the sandbar is and where the birds are, the tide changes and they have to be constantly moving them.
Losing them, yeah.
You go, you walk down the beach one time and it's
Right.
in dry land, you go by the other time and it's in, 3 inches of water.
The idea is that the birds need some space, though, right? So maybe we can put on there how far we want people to stay away from the birds.
Flush birds,
They don't understand flush.
right, I know, I'm just saying.
Is it possible to use like yellow tape to kind of block it?
They'll end up in the ocean.
And the birds.
Same kids that are running through the birds will run through the tape, and
I was gonna say, how about no words? How about just a picture, like one of those, just like a no smoking sign, only with a kid chasing a bird? Like, I know it's not feed,
Yeah.
but the kids that are doing this, the parents are either already telling the kids, hey, don't do that, or the kids just don't understand, but they can understand a picture at any age.
pictures of the kids.
The bottom line is,
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
a good idea, but we just need to make it easier for people to understand.
Any idea, this needs to be refined, and
Yeah.
those are good suggestions, I'd
Good
say.
suggestion, and,
And the second thing has to do with signage also. I have a couple of people who tell me that when they are exercising in the critical wildlife area, they frequently see people with dogs in there. and they think it's because there is insufficient signage there. So I think the signs there are by the FWC, they're only one-sided. Maybe we can make them two-sided.
I mean, there are signs pretty much everywhere you enter the FWC. There is a sign that you will pass by. I think.
Are they double-sided though? And this person said that they're willing to contact whoever. So is it FWC they should speak with?
Yeah, and I'm just a little bit cynical. I think people see the signs. I think they know.
Yeah, right.
They've been told. The FWC, I'm told, is going to do an educational campaign. I think they were waiting until there's a little bit. Have some guys with guns do some.
Good idea.
I mean,
And how about our patrol? Our patrol doesn't go in there,
Talk about
right?
punitive.
Or they do.
So whenever there's a low enough tide, it's been happening on the last several new moons. I've been going through the through the CWA on the wet sand. The base guys tend to not want to enter there. And
Right. So I'll tell them that we are working on it. There will be some efforts.
yeah, FWC is aware of it. We've made complaints. Citizens have been complaining, and depending as law enforcement's going to get involved, FWC law enforcement's involved and do some education.
Thank you. And one more, I sent you a photo of those that people at Sandpiper, the rentals there, where they put all of their stuff on that board and they skid it along the sand, so it tanks it all down. Is that legal? Are they? Yeah, they can do that.
What's the concern?
They're compacting the sand.
I think it's at a level.
All of
that's
that weight,
a
no?
concern, yeah.
And they're smoothing the sand with a air sled, is that?
Right, so, I don't know, I mean, you have a piece of plywood or whatever that's maximizing surface area, and I haven't done the math, but, the chairs vary, is probably a lot less than.
It
In
really
terms of
compacts
ground.
the sand, though, I think, to do that day after day after day. So that it makes it almost like cement after you've gone a couple of feet down. I don't know, I would like to discourage it.
I'll try
It
and
may not be, it may be legal, but I don't think it's,
I'll do some math and see
optimal.
what the woman's walking on. I'm not sure what the pounds per square inch of walking on the sand. I'd be amazed at what the pounds per square inch is compared to the 10 pounds per inch ground to ground.
those are mine.
Great.
Thank you.
I actually have, actually like, during my members' items reports, make a motion. To make a motion to talk to the town council about installing cigarette disposal receptacles in Times Square.
Second that.
Discussion?
I would like to also include reusable water fillers in that.
I would make that a separate, motion.
Okay.
Because now I think that's very specific.
Erin?
And in
What about-
Bayfront and Times Square, I think there are fountains and water bottle fillers, and
What
even a
about-
little thing for dogs.
About cigarette butt receptacles.
That's something they would add after the fact.
There's one at each point of entrance.
I have a second.
I second.
I read that was part of the discussion. Modify anything. Okay, so, anybody in opposition? Okay, motion carries unanimously. So, article dates, I did that already. Well, last time I talked about the Sawfish mural. I was gonna approach the owner of the Big Dick's, is that the new shop? SOBs? Nothing, right, the new guy. He's got a great wall back there as you go over the bridge. That's a clean, new, freshly painted wall. I was gonna approach him and ask him if he'd be interested in the endangered species mural
Pretty awesome.
for that. Is there, I mean, is there a law against, I don't think so, right? Because the t-shirt shop here has a big turtle on the side of one.
That would be my choice of mural, given what potentially could put up there, given the name.
Right, well, the article I read, and I went to the website, and they do all kinds of, it's endangered species in general, but they were looking for sawfish, I think, for this, so. I think, Chad, you mentioned the owners, I'll just go to the shop, yeah, and find out and see if I can do that. Or if that's of any interest to them at all, I think that would really be, that would look great coming over the bridge, coming and going, that's just such a prominent spot. The parade float, I think we're on for the parade still.
Oh, I thought that was supposed to be on the agenda.
Yeah, it was, but it's not, so I put it in my items report, so, not that, it really takes too much discussion, we're still on. I think that's in March, so we can, it's in January again, but, I'm committed, I mean, I'm gonna just do the shrimp parade one.
Can you drive the Tesla or tow a boat?
We were discussing having we got
You
the
have
boat.
My Moana boat's about 25% done. I don't know if it'll be,
Okay.
I mean, we
Okay.
can make it look nice by the time, it just needs to be on.
Okay, I don't wanna open it up for discussion, but
Yeah.
it's still, I mean, still moving forward, and,
We could make it
and in January, it'll be on the agenda.
And my plan is to take a backseat and let you guys do it, because you
Right.
want the panels, I'll dig them out for
Right,
you.
I'm
but-
still interested actually in having the panels, because then we're gonna have signage.
Right.
With the boat, we wouldn't have signage, so
Right.
that would give us great signage to.
Unless the boat's owner let us paint all over his boat.
I'm gonna paint it eventually anyway, so it's still base right now.
It's a
I
pontoon
thought you
boat?
were bringing it in order to launch it, for that event by
Sure.
March.
Sure, maybe.
How big of a boat is it?
30 feet long, 10 feet wide.
Is it a pontoon boat?
It's a sailing.
Oh, it's
outrigger. It's a Polynesian boat.
You ever seen Moana?
Polynesian.
It's her boat.
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah, he's hand making it, it's awesome.
so a Tesla couldn't tow that?
Oh, no. Oh, I can't. It's so heavy right now, too.
It's your truck? Oh,
Yeah, pickup truck, yeah, of course you can. Good.
Needs a
Tow
flatbed or
anything.
something.
I've towed a 5,000-pound boat behind a minivan,
Oh, yeah.
from Philadelphia to Marathon.
Good crap.
Go over that hill that's somewhere near, the island.
Ideally, if we had a flatbed, because then we could have all kinds of room for the signs, for the boat, for everything.
Okay, we'll talk about that in January, it sounds like.
Not a semi flatbed, but some type of flatbed. I've seen. all
Do you
kinds.
have a trailer?
I don't know if it's gonna be ready by then, so.
I have one that I might ask for. I don't know if
Going
we
to
could
sell.
ever do anything other than stand on it. So, potentially.
as
It's gonna be awesome.
giveaways, I have, Sea Turtle Conservancy posters.
I know, it's a very exciting subject, so that's why I wanna save it for January, so we just blow it out.
I think he wants to save it for
But
before
the,
5
but the
o'clock.
last one I have here is the town council meeting, there was a gentleman here from Cape Coral that, was suggesting that they'd like to have a Segway tour that actually enters the beach on Miramar, because it's a part of the beach that's bad and nobody really likes to go there, to be able to run his tour, along the beach, so I'm pretty sure, suggesting that it's an ADA device, a Segway, and that,
I'm pretty sure that's not gonna happen.
No,
I didn't think
it's
so,
not
I just
going
thought
to.
it might,
In the public comment, the mayor directed to staff, because that's what he has to do, we're not allowed to
just to
have.
make application, correct.
Conversations.
So the point was, I think, is that, yeah, I would hope that would be denied. That's it for me.
Nothing to add.
Nothing?
I have something that I think would be a good discussion, changing the name of the committee, our committee, to Estero Island Environmental Resource Task Force or FMB Environmental Resource Task Force to clearly reflect our mission.
That was attempted when I first got on the committee. There's a great deal of loyalty among members for this. It was named by Mulholland,
My old neighbor.
the ward was named after, and he was the one who formed the committee. So I think you find out that you can, it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, I just was thinking because and I did not know that. But I was just thinking because, I believe at one of the town council meetings, Ray had, suggested that maybe the Marine Resource Task Force was getting involved in things that maybe were not, when it first started, it was started as a marine, task force and not other subjects on the island. I disagree with what he said because I feel that almost everything affects our marine water that's environmentally projects that are happening on this island. Plant life does
No blue, no
ultimately.
green. You know?
Well, it's not,
I just thought to be clear,
it's not represented in any of the advisory boards, I think, and that's why it gets funneled here.
And because your committee is effective, you but now what is probably very doable is to go through and change the ordinance, the forming ordinance for MRF and have it include more if it's not included in, because the name doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's what's in the ordinance. And we can always, you can always make a suggestion that if you want more of a sphere, make sure and clarify the language of what you can do.
Anything else?
in regards to that, or?
Is that, were you done with that, or?
Well, no, I was thinking we could have a discussion about,
Oh, we
what
need
he
to add that to
suggests.
the agenda. I mean, I'm trying to avoid having long agenda discussions during members' reports, I guess.
Add that as an agenda item for the next one,
yes.
or purview.
See what exactly it
Just review
says.
the ordinance to see if there's anything in there that you know, a simple tweak that you want to do. Add a sentence, modify a sentence, and bring that forward, and it should be pretty shouldn't take a long time.
18-06.
And
And
then, the second thing would be, do I still request things through you, for the pop-up? Okay.
I mean, I'm basically just forwarding it to Patty. She has the Amazon account. I'm not ordering it.
Oh, okay, I
I'm
see.
not a great personal shopper.
This is not through Amazon, this is through the Arbor Day, Foundation, for,
Send it to me and I'll figure it
items. Okay, great.
Just when you are ordering things, I know these are small things, but, you know, my understanding with the town managers, you guys have a budget. So really, you can kind of pick away at a piecemeal, or you can think about the bigger things you want to do and have a discussion about where the money goes.
This, I think, is that still part of the foundation's donation? So that's the difference,
It's foundation, yeah.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, before the end of the fiscal
that's
year,
pop-up, yeah, oh, yeah.
figure out how to spend the money on.
So should I bring everything that I want to order? I gave a list to the committee, but if I add something that's not on the list, do I need to bring it to the committee?
I think you've been kind of tasked with the pop-up. I mean,
Have the
you know, you
authority.
have $1,000 to spend and
Director.
yes, whatever it was.
Environmental.
The director of the pop-up effort.
So this is just through the Arbor Day, it's Earth Day tattoos, or I'm sorry, Arbor Day tattoos.
Oh, hell.
Kids would really like that, with
Good idea.
tree and stuff, I think that would be good for the Arbor Day. Great. We need to order those quickly, though, so. It's not through Prime.
Stat is his middle name. Ed Stat shoots. Okay, any opposed?
Just doing that Times Square thing again, looking at it, and the whole stretch there down to Bayside Park with their planning of putting in 60 coconut palms. Could find some native trees, like some of the ones listed, and maybe redo their vegetation to some extent. And they also have things like fertilizer and stuff that they're already planning on putting in on these plants, so.
Where is this, sorry?
In the Times Square plans that are on projects.
Also Bayside Park, are they also putting those palms in
Oh, yeah.
there
I
too?
think, no, I
Well,
thought
the
there was,
issue
I
with
thought there was a
Bayside-
request by the vice mayor to not put coconuts, and I thought that was accepted.
It's hard because it doesn't seem, there's nothing's dated on there, so you can never tell if something, but I mean, I just looked at it this afternoon again, and it was there, so that's the current proposed list on there. They do have muhly grass and cord grass, which is fine for lower things, but
We're following the National Arbor Day Foundation, correct? Is that what we're doing? The ordinance? Right, tree protection.
I hope we are, but
That doesn't sound like if the
No.
trees are being planted in our public spaces, if we've got, once again, we're going against our own town ordinance.
But in their defense, in this case, our town ordinance is, and that long list of trees, coconut palms are in there.
Coconut trees are actually protected under the town ordinance.
Get invasive.
What about the vegetation now? Is it specific what the vegetation's gonna be in those plans?
Yes, it's in there. And that's fine, that's good, they're native, they're.
For Bayside Park, the vice mayor's hopes and dreams was to get gumbo limbo there, but the utilities, are you guys familiar with that? Underneath Bayside Park, it's just loaded with utilities, and you couldn't make enough space to actually support a root ball for a good size shade tree.
It's going to cost $250,000 to relocate the utilities for the tree.
Yeah, so that was something that I know the town council was hoping for and limited due to that. So I think that has
Would've been so pretty though.
some limits. So I think maybe from the last meeting, as Bill had mentioned, she'd asked to, and I think it was her, I can't remember, but, or if that was actually proposed, was to still try to find something more suitable. A coconut palm.
Be one of the trees that we're choosing for Arbor Day.
Some of these
No.
things you kind of have to get into the public comment arena when it's on the agenda for council.
So if you want to speak at a public.
If they don't have coconut palms, they won't want uplights.
Hey.
Point.
Oh, good. Any public comment? Jesper, is that you? Okay, let's set agenda for the next meeting, if we shall.
Take the
Propeller.
the thing that we're already in front of council on. Oh, the prop guards. You can take
Prop guard? Off, correct.
The marinas and boat pumps, oh.
Exotic vegetation, I suppose, is that
That's
last?
how the town council moves on it, if they decide
Right.
to do.
Right, that's true.
Then we
So,
still need to talk about what we're gonna put on the website and all that other.
yeah, I mean, it's not going away, it's whether or not it's on the agenda. And obviously, we can put it on the agenda to approve.
Put it after the shrimp.
Yeah. Marinas and pump outs.
Boom.
So these things we're adding, or
No,
what are
these
we
are
adding
coming off, yeah.
on the agenda?
Well, that's what I'm going with, process elimination. Dark skies, will stay on, I guess. I mean, maybe actually we'll have the steering document for what we want to do for municipal lighting ordinance, determination of if it's something we want to, attempt to pursue. And not local projects. And then, Arbor Day tree event is off the week before the event, so I'm thinking it's probably, oh no, yeah.
Thanks for the guidance.
We were going to add hope of MRF activities, purpose, ability, whatever the term is for that. Hope
Review.
use work. And I guess that's it. Items. There's something we're
Done by
missing?
5:30.
There's something we're missing?
The boat parade. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
not
yes,
the boat
of
parade,
Of course, the shrimp
shrimp
parade.
parade.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be a fun discussion, so we'll leave some time for that. So maybe we just have the items for January? As far as I know, is there anything pressing? Be lifting here, so it wouldn't be bad to. Sure, in the new year with meeting maybe. Okay, those 3 items. Review those, right?
I would like to, congratulations to Rob. He will be getting married January 1st.
Brother's birthday? Holy cow.
Thank you.
And I would also like to say happy holidays to everyone here.
You as well.
Happy, healthy holidays.
But
Just
regardless of
see
that,
somebody for a pop-up.
I was gonna grab you afterwards, but I'll make an official apology to you that I dropped the ball not helping with any of the pop-ups because I underestimated how much I needed to do for wedding and holidays.
I thought about
I'm
that.
sorry.
I was way ahead of you.
I'm very
didn't
sorry.
Didn't even think twice.
I met his fiance on a wading walk on the 6 Mile Cypress, and we didn't know each other then, but
That was crazy.
Oh.
She was this really cool guy. He's on city council. Oh, Bill.
Okay, so, the motion to adjourn, 5:56?
Second.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Holy
So sorry I was late, you guys.
I was looking over there, I
missed you,
said, wait a minute, looks
but we
like
knew
it
each other.
folds.
I appreciate
I
it.
heard, I read that those were
Good.
coming.
I bet you're very busy. How exciting that is. Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful.
I'm actually briefly meeting the photographer. I'm going to meet the photographer right now, so.
Yeah.
Interesting, and can you also extend the screen